boys.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The lads.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The dudes.
Prepare yourself for BOYSCAST.
The bros.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The homies.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The dudes.
Experience the BOYSCAST.
The boys. Cast.
I very much like your videos, so I'm very excited.
Oh,
This is
thank
fun.
you, man. Yeah, Titania McGrath, I always thought was so funny.
Yeah, they're still on at me about it. They're still like every now and then when because I don't tweet as much as her anymore.
Yeah, I know.
And then, but I'm too
And it's like a
busy.
parody Twitter account of like an activist, and it was like, but it went
exactly.
like crazy viral.
But then this week, I wrote an article as her, which she tweeted out, and I got a lot of flack for it because she was comparing Elon Musk to Hitler and everything.
Yeah.
And then the Jerusalem Post wrote this thing saying that I was stirring up hate and
Oh, buddy,
violence.
right now that's a hot topic.
I didn't understand it. I was like, well, but we're making the same point. You know,
Making the same
like-
point, but you're making it from a satirical standpoint.
And they even acknowledged that it was
I know,
satire.
I
But
saw
then they
that.
said, look at all these hate crimes on the rise, and sort of blaming me. And I was like, this is weird. I don't understand that.
Is that your first time you're getting in trouble by the like any of the Jewish organizations?
Yeah, this never happened to me before.
They're hot right now, man.
Oh, okay.
That's his people.
That's my people. We're out there.
I was quite surprised.
How many
Danny
times?
said that before he came on. He goes, I don't know if we want to. This guy's a little anti-Semitic.
I mean, maybe I can be if you want me to do
No,
that.
yeah.
Is that
I generally do the heavy lifting in that
Okay,
department.
okay.
In the self-loathing. For Titania McGrath, you guys, that account been suspended a bunch?
loads of times.
Right,
Yeah,
it has,
yeah.
right? I was wondering about that because with all the Twitter files stuff.
Are you back now? Yeah.
Yeah, but I like I said, I don't generally tweet.
How come you're out of the game?
Because
This would be the golden year with
I know.
Elon.
I'm too busy. Honestly, I've got all this
Okay.
other stuff I'm doing, so I'm just too busy.
Did you put a ton of effort into those tweets?
Yeah,
or?
ages ago. I mean, like it was. You know, the thing is, it's been going for a while.
Oh, okay. So this is in the past. a
Yeah,
little.
I mean, look, I'll do it I only do it now if something really annoys me and I just think of something and I'll just do it. That's fine. I don't mind, but it's a distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
you
also pioneered that thing, and then I imagine there's like a lot of people who kind of copy it as well.
I mean, there's a lot of those sorts of accounts now, so I don't know how effective it is.
Yeah.
But although it seems to annoy people still, so maybe I should do it.
I bet
more.
you should see if you could get some connections to see. Like, do you see with the Twitter files where they released
Yeah.
all that
Well, I
back end stuff?
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, I reported on it for my show because I've got a show on a TV channel, a news channel, and I was reporting on it mostly because no one else was. People aren't talking about it.
In Britain,
No, the BBC has not mentioned
the Twitter
the
files.
Twitter files at all, not once.
Really?
And the BBC is our state broadcaster. They haven't mentioned
Yeah.
it once.
We're Canadian, so we have CBC.
Okay, but that's probably worse. I mean, I'm not making assumptions.
It is
Yeah.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah, don't make fucking assumptions.
I'm all about the assumptions.
Of course.
Are we doing? Have we started?
Yeah, is that cool?
Oh, yeah, fine. I didn't
Oh.
realise. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but no, normally people do like an introduction, and I understand. Oh, now I've got to perform.
Yeah.
I'm
so
sorry,
I could have said anything then. I could have been
in
really.
New York. We're fucking.
I mean, if you said anything,
Well,
we
we
would-
could-
we would've-
I could have libeled all sorts of people. because
this
I thought we
podcast
were
is
off the
libel heavy.
record. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Is that a problem? Did you
No.
not want on the record you talking shit about the Jews like that?
Well, no, that was confusing though because their point was that you shouldn't.
I
just-
gave a half introduction. There's an intro
yeah.
Doyle to Titania
Okay.
McGrath. Now he's got a fancy news show. Right?
You're like a proper news anchor.
right, and I was.
What do you call it? A presenter.
So it's a channel called GB News, and I've got a show that's a weekly show, and I just talk about the things that I want to talk about, really. But the Twitter files I really wanted to mention because, like I say, the BBC not mentioning it, and I know over here like MSNBC haven't mentioned it, and also it doesn't really make
Basically,
sense.
anybody where it makes them look bad,
Yeah,
they just ignore it. They say
but
that's
it's newsworthy, surely.
Of course, of course, it's newsworthy. It's so funny too because a lot of it was just confirming what people already thought.
Yeah.
but
That was me, where I was just like, I to be honest, like looking at all the Twitter stuff, there wasn't any real part of it where I was like, what?
Well, no,
like
'cause we all
everything
knew
you were
it.
kind of like, I guess.
Yeah, we
duh.
all. It's what we were all suspecting.
Yeah, of
for-
course. But having it confirmed like that and seeing it in black and white, it's
And the
it's a bit
play-by-play of the Trump thing was
shocking. Yeah.
pretty.
It was, like, kind of
pretty
interesting.
wild. Yeah, to see that it's worthy to. I
What do
mean,
you think
again,
was the
if it
craziest
was on the
part?
other foot,
Yeah, but I mean,
It would be
the Trump
covered
team,
heavily.
The Trump team were also asking Twitter to delete tweets.
Yeah, of course.
But they just weren't doing it because they didn't support him, right?
yeah, we'll get right on that, pal.
Exactly. But I mean,
the orange man wants a tweet gone.
But this shouldn't be isn't a partisan issue. I mean, if either side are doing that, a collusion between a politician and big tech, that's bad.
Sure.
So it doesn't matter who it is.
Well, I think the problem is, obviously a case can be made that all of this might have potentially influenced the results of the election. Maybe it wouldn't have swayed it, but it could have influenced it.
Yeah.
So the people who won, why do they want to talk? It's like almost understandable.
Yeah, I get that. But I'm not even, that is very serious if it's election interference.
Of course.
But really for me, the bottom line is.
Yeah, what's the wildest part about it in your opinion?
It's just, firstly,
it's news.
It's politicians saying, basically it's preventing other people from reading a news article because they don't think it's flattering to their team, right? So it doesn't matter about the substance of the news article. I've been in rows on Twitter about this. People say, why are you so obsessed with Hunter Biden's dick? Why are you... And I'm like, I'm not. I haven't seen it.
I'm a little bit.
Oh, you are? have you seen it?
I've seen it.
It's a nice one, is it?
It's a nice one,
Okay, well then I might become obsessed with it.
So I'm going down
You
the
described
slide.
it as tasty. Was it your actual...
It was going down... He had the photo of him sliding down this slide. This video.
Really?
There was a video of him going down the slide with like 2 escorts and
He's
a
a
pool.
party boy.
But why?
going around
No one
Twitter.
cares about that. No one cares.
No.
They care about the idea that someone can, the politicians, because you can't read this article because you couldn't even share the link, even in a DM. You could, I know.
The DM one's fucking wild.
The thing with the counsel for, I don't know if you saw the Jim Baker. So the guy who was the counsel for Twitter, like the head legal counsel for Twitter up until like a week ago, was up until 2018 the legal counsel at the FBI.
Yes, I did hear that.
So you're like, that's just, regardless of what you think about any of this, like the fact that person is clearly biased and compromised and all that stuff, and then is, doing these, goes from FBI to Twitter.
It's maddening. It's how political it all became, and now people are sort of just lying about it. Like Elton John said he's leaving the platform because it's full of disinformation now. And what disinformation? What are you talking about? Lots of people saying it's crawling with fascists now. I haven't seen them. They're not on my timeline.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, Elton John coming back from that.
I mean, he was really angry, Elton John.
Are you an Elton John fan?
Well, I like some of his music.
Oh,
I don't,
he's got some bangers.
He's known for
Apparently, he like tears through ass. That's like. I'm not even. No, I'm not trying to be like.
Does that phrase mean the same here as it does in the UK?
Sure, I think so.
No, I heard like someone said that Elton John's huge on like having like 4 like male prostitutes. They're like 20, just like at his hotel room.
I
like,
thought he was married and monogamous.
He is married to a Canadian guy, actually.
This is what I heard on the scene.
Oh, well, if we're allowed to do gossip about celebrities, I've got all sorts of stuff. Like, none of it will be true, but I've got some.
You got some hot gossip.
Yeah.
Do they care more about? Is it because similar to? I would assume because in Canada cares way more about American politics than Canadian politics.
Yeah,
that
makes sense. It's much more interesting.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like it's Britain like that.
Somewhere in Britain.
Do we care more about American politics? No, we don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm interested in American politics. Most people in the UK aren't really that interested.
So when you bring up stuff about like Trump in America, they kind of like people don't care.
They have a kind of two-dimensional version of it. They have a sort of vague sense of it, but they're not really interested. They're interested because there's enough going on in UK politics, which is very interesting. Because we keep changing prime ministers every couple of months. It's all a bit mad.
Yeah,
what's going on right now? Is that what's happening?
It's hard to keep up.
So at the moment, Boris Johnson, he got booted out because everyone in his party turned on him. Then Liz Truss became prime minister, but she got booted out within 40 days. It was maddening.
Oh yeah, what did she do?
Oh, she implemented this new. They called it a mini budget. She had this idea about economic growth.
Did she like crash the pound or something?
Well, yeah, because as soon as she implemented these ideas, her and her best friend Kwasi Kwarteng, who was the chancellor, again only for a few days.
That'd be all right, having your chancellor be your best friend.
Well, they were basically very close, and they implemented this idea, and all of a sudden the markets got really spooked. The pound crashed, and basically the economy was screwed. And so then they got rid of her. And then
how do you get rid of her?
Basically, well, she did resign, but everyone was sort of saying how terrible she was. And then she had to get a new chancellor who basically said, I'm going to reverse everything you've just done. Sure. So she effectively had no power left anymore. So she went, and then Rishi Sunak became the prime minister. And but they're going to lose anyway.
Isn't he a big proponent of the digital currency.
Digital currency. Yeah. Well, that's
So
what
you got a
people say,
crypto
but
guy now that's like
what
a main
they-
But not in a good way.
They say he's like a WEF shill and all that
Yeah,
sort of
it's-
stuff. But he's also one of the richest people in the country. He's really, really posh. He's an interesting guy. But I saw Trevor Noah sort of talking about how when he became prime minister, there was a big racist backlash against him because there's an Indian prime minister, and that was a lie. No one in Britain cared. No one. There was not
I
a single.
feel like Indian dudes in Britain is so common.
It's
No
like,
one
isn't
cares.
your number one food?
What, curry?
Yeah, isn't it?
Well, we have a sort of an anglicised adaptation
Version of it, but
yeah,
I'm
sort of
saying, like, it's
hangover
a-
from the Raj,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Empire.
Curry kicks ass.
But I think it was weird to me watching someone doing this satirical thing on American TV about something that just never happened, and that to me is odd because you've got to have some basis in truth. You know,
Yeah, of
you can't just rail against a racist backlash that didn't happen because it was a bit inconvenient that the people weren't racist.
It really
enough.
is. You can make anything seem like it happened because all you need is to be like maybe 3 where you go,
Yeah.
3 people said this. And it's like those could be fake accounts, anything.
It's fun. There's a detachment from the truth in this country. When I heard Nancy Pelosi talking about how the January 6th thing was the same as Pearl Harbor, I mean, I did laugh out loud. I thought that there's no sort of connection with the truth. There. It's like,
No.
You can't just say something that everyone knows not to be true and expect to get away with it. It's
You
so
can,
weird.
though.
Well, you can. I know, but why? Why have we reached that
I
point?
think of it as like probably the same way. It's like if you had a buddy that was like your friend forever,
Yeah.
and then other people were like, this guy's this and this, and then you're like, nah, he's the man.
Oh, I
Like,
see. Yeah, I
think it's just
understand,
that
yeah.
where it's like there's no amount of things that are going to change their minds. So it's like
Yeah.
so. Once you're only talking to people that think what you think, I don't know. I feel like you can kind of say your reasoning doesn't matter.
I guess.
Yeah, and they're based. They just give them what they want to hear. You know.
It's weird. I used to enjoy disagreeing with friends. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was in fact, my friendships were largely sort of fostered on disagreement and sort of mutual contempt. But now that doesn't happen. Now
Mutual contempt's
Yeah, we loved all
great.
that. You know, that was nice.
No, I know what you mean.
But now it is like, I mean, I've lost so many friends now because they don't agree with me anymore.
Even at the comedy clubs, like, do you ever?
Comedians hate me in the UK.
Really?
I get a lot of the sort of bile I get is from them. Or I hit worse still is when friends of mine say,
all of them?
Pretty much. And I mean, I've had friends of mine say,
Reminds
I was
me of
in
Canada.
I was in a green. People say I was in a green room the other night gigging, and everyone was slagging you off, saying how evil you were. And I think, okay, that's nice. Thanks for letting me know about that. That's
just
really
wanted
sweet.
you to
I
know.
mean, it's crazy to think that anybody in comedy could be evil in any sort of like. So that another comedian could honestly say that they go, that comedian's evil.
Well, the comedians in the UK are very sort of, they all sort of have bought into this. We've got to all think the same way and express the same opinions. And because I was pro-Brexit, and there were about 3 or 4 comedians who were pro-Brexit back in the day, 2016. So that automatically made me this pariah by their standards. A lot of them don't care about me, and in a way that's worse.
Do they
isn't it?
even care about
People who are
Brexit?
apathetic. That's, what? No, look.
whatever. So what's the? Is there a post-mortem? Are we at that point where we?
Well,
can
with
do one?
Brexit, okay.
Can we do one at this?
Let's,
point?
yeah, let's. Okay, so yeah.
Do you
Brexit's like your Trump, as far as I'm
but do
concerned, right?
people over here even care about Brexit? Or sort of-
I mean, I
really.
know about it. I understand. So the biggest issue I saw from anybody,
You were
with,
crying, you said.
with Brexit.
you were upset about it.
No, I didn't. I didn't
Yeah, you were.
give 2 shits.
cried.
The only thing that I saw anybody have an issue with, and it was very selfish.
Yeah.
Was that they go, I want to be able to go live all over Europe.
Right, you can still do that.
Okay, well, that's what at the time people were like. Well, I remember meeting a guy who lived in London.
Yeah.
He goes, I guess I can't live in England anymore. or
That's really
something.
ridiculous. I mean, basically, it was about freedom of movement, so you could sort of go.
Okay,
anywhere you
well,
want.
that's what people thought.
So now you just got to queue a little bit longer for the passport control.
Okay.
It's an extra 10 minutes. It is inconvenient,
It's an extra 10 minutes.
but basically,
But you
that's
can
what-
live. You can live anywhere in the European Union.
Yeah, I mean,
still?
well, it's a more complicated process, I suppose.
Okay.
But just in the same way that I could live in America, you know, but there'd be more applications, more kind of things.
But
to
that's
do.
what I'm saying. Pre-Brexit, if
Yeah,
you
work-
could just go move
Right.
to Italy,
and you could work there, and
And
all
you
the
could
rest of it.
work there.
exactly.
That's
so
what I'm saying.
So that's a legitimate grievance. Okay,
Okay.
that's fair enough. But really, what happened was, to put it in a nutshell, if I can, basically around 2016, for many years, there's been campaigns, people saying, no, we want to get out of the EU, the European Union, and we finally got this referendum. And the reason we got a referendum is because the Conservative Party thought they're going to vote to stay in because all the polls said that. And then I think just to piss the Conservatives off, people voted to leave. You know, that was part of it. So we had this big vote.
the
and
Conservatives wanted to stay.
everyone wanted to stay. Conservatives, Labour, Lib Dem, every major party wanted to stay.
Oh, I thought it was more like Conservatives wanted to leave.
No, no.
Because it was like an immigration
The
thing.
Conservatives spent £10 million on a leaflet campaign, which they sent to every household in the UK, telling you have to vote to stay in. This is so important.
So it's
And-
like bipartisan, all the politicians wanted this not to happen.
yeah, all the politicians.
So why did they even let them do the referendum? Because they thought it would settle this once and for all?
Democracy, I guess.
I mean, I do know the answer to that, but it's a bit boring. It's because the Conservatives were in a coalition with a party called the Liberal Democrats. And I think what they did is they sort of used this as a bargaining chip. They had this in their manifesto, not expecting to have to use it effectively. Right. And in the eventuality they had to go to but they were convinced the vote would go the way they wanted it to go, and it didn't. And what happened was everyone suddenly decided that if you wanted to leave the EU, you were a racist, stupid, reactionary, unreconstructed bigot.
And is the reason for that be essentially it was like, we don't want other people like immigrants coming into Britain? Is that the sort of that was the reason? It became like a build the wall situation.
Right, that was the perception of it, but it's a very false perception. The reason why, look, this is
also everything's everything too. Like I'm sure there was some people that were just like, we don't want immigrants, and then there's probably maybe there was more reason, like different people had different reasons.
I'm sure there were some people who voted because they didn't want immigrants. That's that I'm sure there were, and there's always going to be some racists or whatever. But that wasn't the reason. All of the polling told us the main reason why people wanted to leave the EU was because they wanted the laws that govern the UK to be made within the UK, rather than outsourcing a democracy to a bunch of unelected bureaucrats in Brussels, right? So that's really what it was about.
So they have is there someone that's in charge of the whole EU, right?
Well, I mean, there's a person in charge of the Commission, which is Ursula von der Leyen.
And then they make laws for the whole deal?
Well, it's difficult. It's the European Parliament and the European Commission. It's a bit complicated because the Parliament has various representatives from the various countries and they sort of vote ostensibly. But the Commission is where they sort of draw the new laws up and impose them. And those people are not elected, they're appointed.
By who?
By each other. So effectively...
Klaus Schwab.
Right.
Yeah, Klaus.
So you have a situation where we can't vote out the people who are making laws in our own country. And that's not... an appropriate situation as far as I can see.
Gotcha.
So, right, so that's anyway, for me...
I mean, you're in America right now. You're preaching to the choir.
Right, exactly.
So what's
exactly.
the argument?
Never,
what's the argument? What's their argument? Like if you were to be Steelman or whatever.
Their argument is that we're going to be more financially sound if we're in the EU.
Okay, so it was like a trade argument.
Yeah, it was about being richer. But they misunderstood the reason why people left. People didn't want to leave. They understood that we might take a financial hit, but they were voting for the principle of democracy and sovereignty, which is actually, it's not a racist thing.
But is it kind of what happened? It was like, let's say the politicians or globalization people were like, hey, this is going to go against what we want, which is more like money.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, let's call them racist because that'll be the best way to like get our way.
And it's really important to understand.
Is that kind of it?
It's really, well, when you say this, because the EU has capitalism at the heart of its constitution. It is a pro-corporate body, unaccountable, unelected. It has various sort of major corporations lobbying the EU to make it harder for smaller businesses. This is not a left-wing utopia. This is a very right-wing, very conservative body.
And you're not right-wing, right?
And I'm not right-wing. And yet people in the UK thought that it was a left-wing thing to vote to stay in the EU. That's incoherent.
They
it makes no sense.
tricked them almost.
It makes no sense. And then all of us, and by the way, most people didn't even know what the EU was, right? Before 2016, most people didn't know anything about it. And then all of a sudden, all these left-wing activists are painting their faces in the flag colours of the EU.
They got them in, yeah.
And they're like, you don't even know what this means.
Painting their faces?
Oh, they were going, it was like a cult.
EU? Yeah, that is very cult.
They were going and doing like marches with these flags and painting their faces and with effigies of Theresa May, all this weird stuff. And like, you don't even know what the EU is. I mean, if you ask these people, they wouldn't be able to describe what they do. They just got obsessed with it.
I mean, sure, although most of those people couldn't tell you anything about Ukraine now, right?
No, I guess, but it's like they're just latching themselves
it's the same thing.
Because they've decided one side is good and one side is evil, and we want to be the goodies, and that's effectively it. It's so pathetic.
A lot of stuff.
It was everything now, and that's what I mean. It didn't used to be that. You
can use that like sentiment to get your policies that you want or whatever.
Well, that's happening here with Trump, and it's a good evil situation. It's Disney. It's villains and heroes, right? Mm. And the villains are all ugly, and the heroes are all well built and all that. So it's very easy to identify, but that's not how the real life works, right? It's really there are nuances in morality, and I'd like to have those discussions again. But what happens now is...
So what happens when you argue with your friends now?
Well, they don't argue with me, they just block me.
Really?
That's sort of how it works, yeah. But that's okay.
I feel like this is where I kind of argued, not argued, but like, Francis Foster?
Yes.
He was kind of saying that, those guys were, maybe it was Constantine, but they were kind of saying this to me about like the British comedy scene. But then Adam Rowe told me, he was like, well, it's not really like that. So maybe there's, like, to me, I feel like 2015, 16 was like the peak. But, and now it's like sort of a little, I feel like most of my friends that were like really crazy were kind of like, I got a little wild there. Like in Britain, do you feel like it's as bad now as it ever was? Or do you feel like it kind of...
It's pretty bad. I mean, I don't know Adam Rowe, but I imagine it's because he has the correct opinions that maybe he hasn't experienced this. But if you have the opinions that are not deemed acceptable. People are very nervous around you. Like, like now, if I go into there's like at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, there's a performers bar, and if I go in there, people I've known for years will scurry away to avoid being near me in case people think that we know each other. Now that's
really?
and that's still the case. So
I do that with them.
maybe they just hate me for good reason. Maybe I'm a bit boring, but
Maybe they're homophobic.
Maybe they're homophobic. I should really dine out on that a little bit more. I need to play that card a lot more. I'll say the whole thing is rooted in homophobia.
Sure.
But there is that issue. And also I get messages from, things are changing. Like, so I'm getting more messages from comedian friends who used to be friends, sort of saying, oh yeah, but maybe you got this right, and maybe things have been overreacting and all the rest of it. So there's something
like a bit of an olive branch.
Yeah, but they
Yeah,
won't.
you got this whole fucking dudes thing right, because my girl has been annoying me. The old wife was on my case today.
But they won't say it publicly though. That's the thing. Like that. So
Yeah,
so
there's no benefit.
No, I get it. It's like being back at school. It's like when people have decided that certain kids are the ones that you shouldn't hang around with, and that's fine. I'm just that kid now. I'm that kid.
So bizarre.
And maybe that's fair enough.
So that's when you come to America. It's like coming to a new school. Where
No one knows me here. It's quite good. I haven't made any enemies here. So
I mean, I know you from the internet, and like I know Rogan was always like talking about Titania McGrath. That's how I found out about it.
Yeah, and so it's nice because I'm doing a book launch tomorrow, and there's all these people have been, and the guy said to me, which journalists shouldn't I invite? Which people don't like him? Like, well, it's fine here. No one knows who I am.
Nobody cares.
No one cares who I am. So it's great. It's liberating.
Yeah, I had similar stuff in Canada, and then you come here and you're like, oh yeah, nobody cares here.
No.
Like nobody cares about the petty stuff to the.
I also found that, like, I mean, in Britain, I would almost assume that it would be like, I get why, as soon as you are a comedian that's sort of getting into politics in general, that, some people might feel a certain way about that.
Yeah.
But in Britain, I feel like,
But not left wing politics.
well, even, I mean, I don't know. I feel like your average comedian's still just like, a little bit smarty pants comedy. But I feel like in Britain, it was all the comedy smarty pants comedy. Like, I feel like all of the, even like your biggest guys, like Ricky Gervais or Russell Brand, like the biggest people in comedy, even John Cleese, like all those people were always kind of like, like intellectuals in some sort of way, or at least like, and in part of that world more, in a more so than America, which is why it like surprises me that people wouldn't like it. I would have thought that they do like it.
There's always been politics and comedy have always sort of dovetailed, I suppose, in the UK. But I think more than anything because of the class system. I think it's because of class. So that's always been something that's really important.
What do you mean?
UK. Well, what I mean is, we have an awareness of class and status and hierarchy, social hierarchy, which is really built into our politics in a big way. So like Labour and the left are always considered to be about supporting working class people and social mobility and that kind of thing, and the right are perceived as being sort of sustaining the economic privilege of the powerful and the rich, right? But that's all sort of been upended by the culture war. It's really weird now. So Labour is now a weirdly middle class party. And,
that's sort of happening in Canada now.
Yeah, it's
the one that was like used to be about the steel workers is now about like whatever, like gay pride parade expanding.
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly. You've got Trudeau calling the working class truckers fascists, effectively, right?
Didn't like the truckers. Likes the Chinese truckers though.
Yeah.
But didn't they say that when the truckers were pressing their horns that the honk honk was a dog whistle because HH means Heil Hitler?
Yeah. Someone did say that. That was,
and it wasn't just someone on the internet. It was someone quite prominent.
The CBC. No, it's like someone at the CBC.
Well, that's insane. That's a mentally ill person.
They also said
New Kanye West album has so many honks.
I think it was Rosemary Barton, who was like one of the main people at the CBC. She was saying that the whole it was all Russian.
Again,
like it was like the Russians
make something up, and but
this is like the prime time CBC News,
right?
And she's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure this whole trucker thing is like set up by the Russians,
right?"
It just says it, like
it's
like she just they have thoughts. But on air,
we saw one of the truckers was drinking vodka. We know this is a Russian-based plan.
Isn't it just that they don't like working class people? I mean, isn't that part of it? Or
I think they just want to get what they want, and they'll say anything.
So the CBC is just I'm sure the BBC is somewhere where everybody there it's a very cushy existence.
Yeah.
They don't do a lot. Once you're in, it's probably hard to get out, and they say what they need to say to stay there.
Okay.
Does BBC make anything good now, or do you find it's crappy?
You're
on a competitor.
No. I don't mind slacking it off. No, but I'm not. Well, I used to be on a panel show on BBC Radio, which was called The Moral Maze, which I really enjoyed. But I thought that was one of the few good shows still left on the BBC. But the problem with the BBC is they do actually make some very good programs, and they have some very, very talented people there. But everyone I speak to who works there says that there is this kind of ideological capture going on. It's like there are certain parameters about what you can explore and what you can't explore, and it's particularly rooted in this sort of critical social justice world, which, as you know, Justin Trudeau is bought into as well.
Oh, he's all in.
Well, I mean, he's the guy who was, provides the funding. That's
why did he not get voted out for all the blackface stuff?
They like him.
Because they just decided that it was the lesser of evils.
If you did blackface, they never hear the end of it. Like maybe you have. Have you done
I
it?
have not. No.
I mean, just think of it as this: when it was Trump, Joe Biden, and people wanted to vote out Trump. Is there much that Biden could do that would make them vote for Trump?
Well, that's it.
Almost
they
nothing.
forgive a lot, don't they?
Well, they're just like there's no scenario where I'm voting for the other one.
Exactly. But BBC's has that mindset. It's so embedded, so rooted in. There's a new director general who said he's going to try and promote more diversity of opinion at the BBC, but he hasn't been able to do it. It's been a couple of years now, and he just hasn't because it's so ingrained. If someone says, "Oh, maybe we want to do a program about why gender identity ideology might be a threat to women's rights," that will get kiboshed straight
I
away.
can't imagine BBC's coming out with the anti-trans thing.
But that's not an anti-trans thing. That's the thing.
No, but just something that would appear like that. You're just like, I feel like I wouldn't even try to pitch something like that.
Something that would be misrepresented as being anti-trans.
No,
right?
I understand what you mean. I wasn't saying that. I'm just like,
I know what they say.
There's no scenario, where you go to BBC and you're just like, there might be some stuff that they're wrong about in the trans stuff. It's
but as a public,
there's the door, pal.
But as a public broadcaster, you should be fairly. You should at least attempt to be unbiased.
Yeah, they should.
They should at least try to pretend.
Pretend.
But they do a pretty good job of being politically non-partisan when it comes to their news reporting. I think they do.
Oh, see, in Canada they don't at all.
I think they do. I mean, people will argue with me. And say
I've also heard that though, that their actual news isn't as the same thing.
It's just when it comes to this stuff, they can't help but preach and sermonize. But yeah, look, and a lot of people will disagree with me for saying that, by the way. But I do think they do it's a hard thing to be completely politically neutral or to be perceived as politically neutral. But when it comes to the woke stuff, they're very much on board on one side and they can't disguise it. Yeah. So it's not good.
Which
and
is
it's not good.
Path of least resistance, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, but it's not good for a state broadcaster, like you say.
No,
it shouldn't be that way. So
state broadcasters kind of stink. Period.
Well, we all pay for it as well because we all have the license fee, which is compulsory. So you go
same with in Canada.
Go to prison.
Really?
Yeah, you go to prison if you don't pay for it. So even if you don't watch it,
we have
what do you mean go to
prison? We don't have a
prison?
license, do we? In Canada,
I mean, you
they
pay
have a license.
taxes.
No, but he's saying you have to buy a license like you do for
cable. You have to buy a
cable.
TV license. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, everyone has to buy it.
Even if you're homeless, or just if you have a home.
I think you have to have a TV. So if you're a homeless person with a TV, you'd have to.
Is it like when you go to buy a TV that just a portion of?
No. You have to go online or send a check and pay every year. And if you don't, someone comes around to your house. And they used to have vans that could detect your signal coming from your TV that would and they put out these creepy adverts. I remember when I was a kid, there was creepy adverts, these vans trundling at night saying, "We can find you if you're watching TV without your license. We will find you."
You don't have your and that money just goes to
the BBC, and that's why they've got so much money to make the programs, right? So that's the idea. It will
it's a good racket.
How many channels does the BBC have?
One.
Just
one.
one.
Well, no, wait, sorry. It has BBC One and BBC Two. It has BBC Three, which is an sort of internet digital thing.
Okay.
And BBC Four is another digital.
They used to crank out hits though, right? It was like The Office.
The comedy
everything.
stuff was brilliant. All like Fawlty Towers and The Office and Monty Python and all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
So can we talk about working with John Cleese?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, we asked him basically. So I'm part of this new channel called GB News, which again is one of those things that's been completely monstered as this evil right-wing
people
channel.
don't like it.
It's the
so they can't like John Cleese doing that, or is he already? They already don't like him.
The point is that they gave him a lot of flack when it was announced, but the point is that we've just said to him, you can make the show you want to make, do whatever you want to do. No one's going to try and impose and say, no, you can't say this, can't say that.
Would it be like being on Fox News or something here?
That's the way it's perceived. That's the way it's perceived. But it's not like that. But it's simply that. I mean, on my show, we get people in from all different opinions. The idea
I was watching some yesterday. So you bring one guy on one side, one guy on another.
That's what we do.
It's just like a debate show.
Yeah.
Oh, so you do.
But it's not like here's four people on one side. Let's talk about this issue.
No, it's not. I do my best to get all opinions.
It seemed like journalism. I guess.
Well, what happened with GB News is about 4 months before we aired, we announced it, and basically all these activists. There's an activist group in England called Hope Not Hate, or Stop Funding Hate, or one of those.
Yeah, they have the best names though.
It's always
right because they have these names where they go stop hate, and you go, well, I don't want to be the person who's going up against Stop Hate.
Well, there's that, but also they're very hateful in their own rhetoric. So they're like, "Stop hate, you evil fucker." You know, so there was those people, and they said it's going to be an evil far right fascist channel. And then we went to air, and it wasn't. It was just various people with different opinions talking, and they still stuck with the fantasy that they created for all those months because they couldn't. I guess they couldn't afford to admit they couldn't say actually it's not that bad.
Yeah. So same with Kanye. People won't admit that it's like pretty.
It's exactly the same as Kanye, exactly. But then ultimately, and now things are getting a bit better because what happens is when people actually watch the channel, they think, oh, actually, it's not what they said it was.
Sure.
So the hysteria tends to be perpetuated at the moment by the people who've just never watched the channel, refuse to watch the channel.
Everything, right?
Like, I have this all that when I invite someone on and they come back and say, no, I'm not going on an evil far right thing, and I'm like, well, I'm not even right wing, and I'm not evil. It's fine.
I'm a little.
We're all a little, as Solzhenitsyn said, we're all partly evil, but I rein that in for the purposes of broadcasting. So this is the issue that I can't get the guests that I really want on. The people who would be my complete detractors because they won't. Also, they don't believe in debate. They don't believe in.
Yeah. Well, generally, I think what happens is they realize they'll kind of get picked apart.
Well, maybe, but I'm not a combative. Interview.
Yeah. Well, I think they probably just realize that their talking points are not that solid.
Well, they're not based on reason or fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, the fact that John Cleese, the way he's perceived now as right wing, is crazy.
Yeah. What does that look like in Britain? Because he's like the biggest guy there, right?
Yeah, well, it's because he's this.
Could be like our Bill Cosby.
He's like
he
a
was
legend.
like one of the biggest guys here.
Yeah.
No, I know, but like. In Britain, he's got to be like real.
I think it's because he's done so many major things. It's not just it's Faulty Towers, but it's also Monty Python, but it's also Fish Called Wanda. It's like there's so much, and he's so respected and so brilliant and undeniably a genius. And so
he had this like speech on YouTube that I used to always watch about
the writing.
Yeah.
That was our buddy Garrett Joyce. He's an author. He sent it to me. That was like, this is the best thing on writing that he's ever.
He's great. And so and we've just said, look, it's going to be a show where he gets to talk to the people that he finds most interesting about the subjects that maybe other channels don't like to talk about. And it will be funny and it'll be light, but there'll also be serious bits. And we're not doing it for another few months, so we've just been knocking ideas about it at the moment. But it's really
just
nice.
You and him hanging out.
We're just talking most days about what elements we could do, what we couldn't do, and so I think it'll be really enjoyable and it'll be really interesting. And the idea that it's going to be a right wing. Like, he's not right wing, so
he's not.
I mean, he's very anti-Trump, and he's very kind of
he was like a never Trumper type of.
And he's anti-Tory, and all. So it's gonna. If people want to watch this show and then stick with this fantasy,
same thing as like Russell Brand. I
mean,
guess.
isn't he essentially just so pro free speech?
It's free speech, and
which was like what Monty Python. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, he wants to have discussions with people.
Yeah,
sometimes about difficult things, and he wants to maybe disagree. Sometimes it's fine. It's very old-fashioned, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's actually what it is. So it should be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm looking forward to that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What kind of is there anything that sticks out about this is the corny question, but like is there anything that sticks out with his like that you kind of when working with him be like, oh, that's interesting how he does that, like John Cleese specifically, like about comedy or how he like makes a TV show where you're just like, ooh, that's interesting.
Okay, well, I'll come back to you on that when we've actually started making it.
So you're
at
just
the
in
moment
the
it is just about we're just discussing and writing notes,
just talking shit,
basically getting the ideas out there.
Is J.K. Rowling still like a?
She's a big one too, right?
So, well, she's another one. I mean, she's so misrepresented. It's unbelievable.
But is she like a villain there now?
Not among most people. I mean, the Harry Potter books are selling more than they ever did.
Okay.
People on Twitter, people who call themselves left wing on Twitter, they think she's a villain. But they again are indulging in a collective fantasy, and it's really weird. It's a hysteria.
Yeah.
It's more. I think it's worse here, isn't it? When it comes to her.
What, not liking her?
Well, yeah, because wasn't there a New York Times advert about imagine Harry Potter without the creator? And,
I remember there was. That was like a whole campaign. Like that was all over the subways and stuff. Here
it's so weird, because this is a woman who gave so much money of her own money away to charity that she sort of brought herself out of billionaire status because she's so sort of philanthropic, and she's just concerned about women's rights. She wrote a really long, compassionate article about how she supports trans rights and equal rights for everyone, but as a victim of domestic abuse, she has concerns about women's safety in single-sex spaces. All really reasonable and measured. And that's why when you get in an argument with an activist and you say, can you just quote the transphobic thing that she said? And they never can. And then you say, well, look, as an adult, shouldn't you therefore revise your position on this? And they say, well, you're an evil bigot, transphobe for arguing. I mean, it's just religious.
Yeah, it
basically
is
at this
really,
point.
yeah, it is zealotry essentially.
Yeah, she obviously seems like just a really nice person.
Yeah.
like quite obviously.
I was just
So-
wondering because over there, like if because she must be obviously
Do you know her?
No, never met her.
I just assume everyone in Britain knows each other.
Because it's quite small. It's quite small.
I mean, like, there is something to be said about, like, you know, in a country where at least all the, like, famous people know each other or whatever, you know?
There's a lot of famous people in Britain as well.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm just saying in Canada, I would, you know, if they know this person, at the very least, you're like, well, I hung out with them at a party. Or
Well, that
something.
is the classic Canada thing where everybody's like, "Oh, you're from Canada, you know Jeff?"
What you do, and you're like, oh, just because I'm Canada, I know Jeff Wilson. Okay, I do know Jeff Wilson.
Do you know some like Celine Dion and Justin Trudeau?
I would if she was more my age.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Probably.
yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I would.
No, Celine Dion. Do you know
No.
Avril Lavigne?
I've been at a thing with her.
All right, you don't know her.
Maybe I
The
do.
terrible thing is, I'm trying to think of famous Canadians, and I can't really. There are more. There are more, aren't there? Yeah.
And then there's some. Well, I mean, in the New York comedy scene, if you're like, you know, this person,
Yeah,
generally
for
you're like,
sure.
oh yeah, I've done maybe
That's
not
true.
best
That's
friends,
true. But J.K. Rowling's in the.
she's not really on the comedy circuit like that.
No, she's not. She's got a solid 10, and that's about it, you know. But no, I haven't.
I imagine she
met
lives
her.
on some estate somewhere. Some
Oh, probably. I don't.
giant.
She's got a house because I know that because activists tweeted a picture of her house with the door sign clearly visible so that people would know the address. You know, this is how they
just-
behave. You know,
Does she have guards?
I imagine she's got lasers and robots. Right? I would have thought so. If you're that rich,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
you would-
even if you don't need them,
Have you ever had any consequences like in real life of people, you know?
trying to get at me or something.
Yeah.
No. I mean, look. I've often had people saying they're going to come and protest stuff I do.
No one
and
protested
no one,
shows?
No one ever does. The one that came closest, I guess, was when we did a pilot for Radio 4, again, BBC. This was last year, I think, early last year. And it was, we were doing a stand-up night, and I was doing a set. Various other comics were doing a set, and all these activists said that they were going to turn up with air horns. They were going to disrupt the recording, and they just didn't. They just didn't turn up at all.
One of my favorite things that Jordan Peterson said recently, where he was getting protested, so he's just started doing his things at 8 in the morning.
Yeah, they'll never get up.
He goes. I
They'll
just
never
started
get up in
doing
the
those
morning.
things at 8 in the morning, and problem solved.
I think so funny because if they turn up, what are they going to do? What are they protesting? Just people having a chat?
I did
People doing comedy.
I did
What?
it in Toronto. I called it was a like literally tongue in cheek joke, a free speech comedy show.
Yeah.
And literally, I got the locks of the venue broken for the first time around, and then we did in this theater where Jordan Peterson actually would do his Bible lectures or
Yeah.
whatever, and they pulled the fire alarm like during the.
Okay, so it's really infantile.
That's because this comedy was so fun.
Had to put out the heat.
No, I haven't had any of
I
that.
must have been on stage.
I'd quite like some of that. Maybe it might be quite fun to have a few protesters there because I'd like to
It
talk to
was,
them,
except
you know?
for that I'm not a producer of comedy, but I was forced to just because I got myself into this mess of just this
Okay.
whole thing. And then the school was like, oh, because of they're threatening you, so then you have to spend all this money on security. But
Yeah.
I'm like, but they're threatening me. Why do I have to spend all this money on extra security? And they're like, well, if you don't, then we won't do the show.
Well, that's the way they get it. Like, so they're saying they're not anti-free speech, but the security costs are going to be so prohibitive that you end up having to cancel the show. This
Of
is
course.
a really standard.
I mean,
tactic.
these are the same people who say, well, free speech has limits because you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater, and then they pull the fire alarm in a crowded
Well, it
theater.
doesn't make sense. You are actually allowed to shout fire in a crowded theater.
But I'm saying
Particularly if
they
there's a
say
fire.
that, but
if there's a fire,
if there's a
you
fire-
better bloody shout.
Right,
that.
but I'm saying that's their defense, and then they pulled the fire alarm in a crowded theater.
I always thought that was a really sort of bad analogy anyway, because you know if you are free to shout fire in a theater, but when you buy a ticket to a live show, you sort of enter into a contract to behave in a certain way.
I mean, if you
So
go-
they
yeah.
can chuck you out. You
That's
can shout
true.
fire, but they can chuck you
I mean,
out.
if
and
you
that's
go-
It's
not
not illegal.
It's not illegal.
If you go watch comedy at like the Apollo, there's people shouting fire all the time.
Yeah, are there?
It's a joke. terrible joke. I should probably be on Showtime at the Apollo just with the hook, just pulling me off stage for that one.
Do you mean the one in London live at the
No, the Apollo in Harlem.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's like the notorious.
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah.
everybody
Oh, is it really
boos.
rough?
Oh yeah. Like people have been shot on stage before.
Really?
Yeah, someone's been
How
shot on
dramatic.
stage. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
people get booed off a stage, but they have I forget they have an Apollo.
There's a couple of clubs like that in London. There's one called Up the Creek that used to be very bad for people. Like people would go along to deliberately try and I saw someone get booed off there so badly. It was like a murder. It was absolutely horrible. It was an American guy. He started saying, "Well, why don't you come up and fight me?" Sort of. It was a bit like that. That was a bit weird.
Yeah, that
I
is
don't
a
like
bit
that sort of thing.
strange.
No, that's not-
I think that courtesy is where I'm at. Sit there and watch the show, and you know,
I do
very
believe-
British.
Do you find that the race stuff is different in like Britain than it is in America? Because I feel like
Yeah.
people always say that. Like even the thing you said before, where it's so much more based on like class and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
I've always hear people say that, but like, kind of, does that seem?
There's just
accurate?
because it's just not as big an issue in the UK as it is over
It's
here.
way
you know?
you're way more identified with the person that's like makes as much money as you versus.
Exactly. I mean, you don't hear racist comments very much at all. It's just a very tolerant, open country. Here I think because you've got much more of a history of racial division and things.
That's true too. Yeah. Is it very uncommon that people sort of? Is it like really uncommon where someone was like kind of born poor and ends up like not poor?
I mean, okay. Well,
I
that's
guess the American dream.
The American dream. Well, we used to have a thing called the grammar school system, which meant that if you were poor but smart, you could go to this elite school that was like the equivalent.
Poor
of
people aren't smart though.
It's a genetic thing mostly. Yeah, there is that. And then, so there was a way to become, upper class effectively because you could do it, but they got rid of all of those. So now it's
Why did they get
harder.
rid of them?
I don't know. It was a bad idea. I guess because they thought it was elitist, but it was elitist, but in a good way.
Because it felt a little like, we'll pluck one little poor person out and
Right.
let them
But the
hang with it.
alternative's worse.
But now the alternative exactly is that if you're born poor, you're probably going to die poor because it's really hard to get anywhere because there's so much.
Because you can't go to college or
Well, it's
what?
not just that. It's like
Your schools suck.
if you're rich. I mean, look, okay. So I used
The
to be-
internet must have helped.
It can do if you're creative, but I'll give you an example. So I used to teach at a private school, at a posh school.
Oh, really? You were a teacher before?
Yeah, I was a school teacher, and then
What'd you teach?
English and drama.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I wasn't used to these posh kind of schools because I went to a comprehensive school, so I went to normal school, and then everyone there was so rich, and there was an assembly I remember where kids were coming up talking about what they did in the summer, and they've all been given these internships, unpaid internships at like top magazines, GQ, BBC, etc., because their parents just made a phone call.
Uh-huh.
So then they've got that experience, and of course they can afford to do an unpaid internship, which working class people can't do anyway. So you end up in this situation where it's nepotism, and it's you end up with it's pointless to deny that if you're born into that kind of society and that kind of background, you have so many advantages. The cards are sort of weighed in your favour. It's pointless to deny it.
Sure.
And things I think on that basis are worse than they've ever been. I think it's harder if you come from working class background to get anywhere.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, it just makes logical sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common story. Where
Yeah.
You got to be like the person that really is like, I'm moving to a different place. You changing
Yeah.
the way I talk, right?
Yeah, like-
because you can probably tell more the way that people talk, like even that. This guy's,
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's the Southern accent here or something.
Well, there's rich people with the Southern accent.
But I mean, you can tell the difference between the rich ones and I mean,
sure, yeah, okay.
But also too in America, like they have a lot of the race stuff, but at the end of the day, it still is class based.
I think, yeah.
that people just don't want to admit.
But like you say,
as
with,
much.
with comedy and with if you're creative, it's different, isn't it? Because if you're funny, you're funny, and if you put stuff out there,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. You can get on.
Well, I always heard that like, and maybe that changed now, that kind of people used to say, because a lot of Canadians would decide whether to come to like America or Britain. Because
Yeah.
you could come to Britain for
There's a visa. There's a
you
special
could get a
Commonwealth
visa,
visa.
like perfect,
A
like
comedy visa.
No, Commonwealth.
Commonwealth.
Oh, I see it.
So
No.
if you're under the age of 30, you
Yeah.
can immigrate to Britain.
Got it. Okay,
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
Yeah, you could go.
entertainment.
It's for like I think it's a 3-year visa. But
Okay.
you can straight up just like if you're less than
You just
30.
get it.
Oh,
you guys,
okay.
you were letting everyone in. You were trying to stop it.
I personally was trying to stop it. I was circling the
At
shores in a
Heathrow.
boat. Yeah,
Just at
yeah. I
Heathrow,
was like,
just
turn
be
back.
like,
You're not coming in.
Turn around.
Yeah. No, I'm-
I had the thing with a paint swatch on their skin. No.
Yeah, no. There's you can go. I'm sure. Same with you. Like you can go to Australia.
Can I? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was for a certain age. Just like the Commonwealth countries all have
Okay.
some sort of pact.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of comics were.
A lot of Canadian comics wanted to do the London circuit.
Well, not that they wanted to. It's just you could do it a lot easier than coming to America's hard.
And
going to
Canada
England
sucks.
But it's still hard. I mean, I'd still say that there's a disproportionate number of sort of independently wealthy people on the comedy circuit. Because if you think about
right.
it,
Well, that's what I was going to ask is because people used to say that like, well, in Britain, comedian's almost like a working class job in a lot of ways, and then but maybe now it's not or something.
it's not really. It's because
Was it?
It was maybe it used to be maybe when it was like
So maybe
sort
that's
of,
bullshit,
maybe
what
it is
I've been hearing.
but there used to be like working men's clubs and sort of where it
Working men's clubs.
yeah, your kind of thing, you know. Where there's a lot of working class comics from that sort of era. Whereas now it's different. I think what happens is because with comedy, you know, if your parents have bought you a flat in London and you don't have to work, you can spend all day writing. You can sleep till like 1 p.m.
You're at an advantage,
and then you can develop material quicker, and you'll get through the circuit quicker, and etc. And you can pay for Edinburgh Fringe shows, which cost thousands and thousands of pounds, which you don't make back. So you have huge advantages, and that is why there's a disproportionate amount of posh people on the circuit, I guess.
Right.
That's it. Because when I was a teacher,
if you're
I was
going to
doing
live in London and not have to,
yeah, exactly.
It's just a hard.
Well, I was
thing to do.
gigging when I was a teacher in Ipswich, which is a town further north from London. So I was gigging in London at night, but then I was working during the day as a teacher, and I'd get back really late at 2 a.m. And so I was constantly exhausted and constantly tired. And you know, if I could have just given up that job and just done stand up, that would have been much better, much easier.
Yeah, it feels like it accelerates. Like it's almost. I always kind of was thinking like money seems to like accelerate what you know the same way that COVID. You know, almost the lazy people got lazier and the hardworking people got more successful in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's the same thing as like take a 19-year-old and give them money. If that was like a super driven like 19-year-old, it'll accelerate. It'll just save them years that they would have had to spend.
Absolutely.
But if they're like a lazy person, they'll just party and not work and do
Although no
anything.
one wants to go
It'll
back.
accelerate their downfall.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, it's made people lazier. Like people don't want to go back to work now. There was a survey last week in the UK that said that 1 in 10 young people have decided never to work. They've decided they've decided they're not going to get a job
Ever.
No, that is what they're saying.
Yeah.
They're saying they've decided to opt
Respect.
out of employment.
That reminds me of I had a friend when I was in college, and we used to smoke.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to quit smoking, so he just said, "You know what? I'm not going to buy cigarettes anymore."
Yeah.
But he didn't say I'm going to quit smoking. He's just
Right.
like, I'm just going to, and you're like, so
That's everyone. That's
but he said that. But he's like, there's one thing to do that. But he goes, this is my plan. He goes, so what? Everybody's just going to give you cigarettes? Like he didn't.
Yeah, that's
he didn't
what
even
I'm
cut back.
If you don't work, you don't get to eat, right? I
Yeah.
don't understand this idea. I'm just going to not do that. Well, then you're going to starve to death. and you deserve to.
Do they have the social nets there that can allow that?
Like a welfare state?
I guess.
I do. Yeah, we do. But don't you have to sort of prove that you're looking for work.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you decided that is just against your principles, then I don't know why they're going to give you money.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you can't tell them that though. He's probably not saying that in the interviews.
But also, they don't quite want that. They don't want to be poor. They just don't want to work. It's not going to work. Like, theoretically, this thing might sound great.
I have a
but
couple
the reality
buddies.
is,
I know a couple dudes that are scheming the system pretty good.
Really?
And they have a very obviously what I'm doing is not good, but don't hate the player, hate the game.
No, but I once tried to go on the dole, which is the sort of when I was out of work before I started teaching and I had no money, and I tried to claim unemployment benefit, but there was so much bureaucracy.
It's not as easy as you
it's
think.
so hard, and actually I couldn't even understand the forms I was meant to fill in. So in the end, I just thought I'll just won't eat.
easier.
I just won't bother.
It's
You know,
easier to just-
I'd rather starve because
Yeah, yeah.
this is torture.
And if you were going to get another job, you do I'm doing all this for 2 months.
Yeah.
You got to be like a bit of a lifer to really fucking crack that system.
Yeah, exactly.
You're putting as much effort into the job that you would.
It's harder than a real job.
Yeah.
It's much
Yeah.
harder. So why not just get the job?
I wonder if that's by design.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, of course they want to put people off.
Yeah, you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
you think getting a job's hard? Try getting free money from us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of times you kind of know the system where you're like, hey, I have to make this, I can make this much, I have to have this many kids, like this, and then you have to wait till this kid's this old to have this other one, and if I have a husband, he can't technically live here. Like, they have all the they know all the system, right?
That's what I should have had children. That would have been the way, yeah,
they're cash machines. If
Yeah,
you're on
yeah,
if you're on the dole.
yeah, that's what I should have done. I didn't think of it,
Cash.
and I didn't have a womb to create one of the children. That's the issue.
Yeah, you need one of those.
You need a womb.
Generally.
Yeah.
I'm sure the government could provide one at some point.
I saw you talking about the China stuff recently,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we've sort of talked about it a bit, but we don't really know what we're talking about. So
Neither do I.
The protests?
Well, what was I talking
no,
about?
the social credit stuff.
The social credit
I
stuff,
think
yeah.
no. The surveillance, and this is where you posted something where they have essentially like the government has. What was it, like 10 million cameras or something
they've
set
got-
up?
yeah.
It's just like I don't know the number.
It's basically there's one camera for every 3 citizens, okay?
Yeah.
And what that means is, and they've also developed technology that can identify
what kind
your-
of camera is it? Like just like hidden cameras?
It's hidden, but it's worse than that. It can zoom right in and it can detect your emotions, and then therefore it can predict if you
This
are
guy's too happy.
If you're if you're contemplating crime, it will detect
Stop.
it. That's what they claim.
No.
So there is effectively pre-crime
Minority Report.
and
And
they,
as we were, I was saying to
How
Ryan
can they
earlier,
tell? Like, you've just got like a little sinister look on your face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They probably modeled
What?
it and they figured it out. But I was
When-
saying to Ryan, it's called Skynet.
yeah, it is like Skynet.
No, it's called Skynet.
Oh, it's not called Skynet, surely.
It's called Skynet.
What?
Yes, it's so that's like the
This
craziest
is what he
thing.
says. Yeah.
That-
It
that's-
is called Skynet.
Okay, well then that's that's
Isn't
how
that, like,
that's how we're
insane?
going to die. That is how we're going to die. I've no doubt about it. But that is scary because they monitor the internet, as you know, so it's very difficult for people to get around it and get the information that they want. They have 2 million state agents monitoring the internet, and not only do they monitor your activity, they go into chat rooms and try and steer the conversation in a certain way so that you are celebrating the regime. It is completely.
So they have
Orwellian.
I guess they sort of do that a little bit here somewhat.
Do they?
Whatever. Well, I mean, that's a conspiracy, I guess, but like there's
Well, it's not
all
being
the bots
funded
and all that stuff.
Yeah, but that's not being funded by.
Well, it's being
the
funded by the
government.
parties, I guess.
Yeah, maybe
So what's
the party.
difference?
Well, that's different.
Well, the parties, if once the party's in power and
But
they're
I guess
funding
they're
like stuff like that,
They're
isn't it the same?
fundraising externally. I don't
Yeah.
think the government, the United States government, is funding like these bot farms,
Okay.
or at least not.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
There's some sort of like
I think we're
like-
still relatively free here, and I think there's a lot to be said for freedom, and I think there's a lot to be said for looking at China and think we do not want to become that.
Yeah.
But then the way that Trudeau, for instance, has behaved. I mean, he was literally taking away the bank accounts of people who peacefully protested, right? So and it's
and
wi-
has not returned the money in many
No,
instances.
he was saying that they were going to give the money to a worthy cause. How
Well, they
dare
took
you?
everyone's
Like-
crypto. He's going to
Yeah.
give them back. It's worth nothing.
It's worth nothing now, exactly. But he's also had the gall to come out and condemn the Chinese government for all of these measures, and
That's
it's
what we were
really
saying. It's
really
so funny.
hilarious.
He goes, yeah, go ahead.
Who the
They
hell
should be allowed
does
to
he think he
protest.
is? It's nuts.
Yeah.
Why don't they vote him out? I still can't.
You're a fellow, he's a fellow drama teacher too.
Yeah.
Oh, of course he fucking is. Unbelievable.
Because what happened is the last election, he won a minority, and then he made a deal with another party, the NDP
Okay.
party, which is the further left of the Liberals. They basically made a deal that would just allow him to stay in office.
Okay, but there's going to be some sort of backlash at some point, right?
I mean, you know what? A lot of people are not, oddly, I don't know if it's some sort of Stockholm syndrome type deal or what, but a lot of people are like, yeah, it's fine.
Isn't that in your nature as well? The Canadian
Yeah.
nature? You're
Most
quite-
people don't
quite-
care about that kind of
Yeah.
shit too, where they're
Yeah.
like your average person. They're like, "Hey, remember that protest? The truckers, they stole their money." Everyone's like, "Okay, I don't know."
they
Yeah,
don't-
okay.
People just, generally.
But that's why I was
don't
surprised
care.
by the Canadian trucker thing, because like Canadians don't generally get angry, do you? You're quite
No.
placid, gentle people.
Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah,
That's
of course.
Is like I think a lot of people trying to say that was a coincidence, but they did that thing, and then the truckers and all the honking, and then a lot of those restrictions
Right.
started to ease.
Well, that's what the Chinese government's finding out now. Is that actually there's a lot of
I
Chinese
mean, activism
people, and
works. They
it
started
does.
rioting in New York. They got rid of police.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's more,
Activism does.
if there's enough people doing
Protesting
it,
works.
protesting works. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, there's enough, and maybe even in China it could work.
Yeah, it seems like
You know?
they actually did. They restricted the zero COVID policy from the.
Yeah, they did.
from the.
And they were finding ways to post footage of their protests that were getting around the system. Like it was a sort of cat and mouse thing between the people trying to monitor the internet and the protesters trying to get around it. And actually, they will find a way.
Yeah.
So I have hope. Power of the people will always win out.
I was saying,
hopefully.
I don't know if I think I said to Ryan maybe on a previous episode. I don't know if it was real, but there was a video of somebody with their COVID pass, and they would like
Yeah.
stick it out the window, and it would go red.
Oh, is that right?
Did you see that?
I didn't see it. No,
it,
no,
it
no.
was like legitimately.
Oh,
Small bladder.
you've had enough.
Yeah, he's had a small bladder.
Did I say something? that
No,
offended you?
he's just got a tiny bladder. It's
Oh.
regular.
He needs to see a
regular
doctor
occurrence.
about that.
I don't know if you know the healthcare system in America.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. If
It's
you're
a
if you're
goddamn
poor,
nightmare.
if you're poor and you're ill, you die. Is that sort of how? It
No,
works?
it's actually that's a bit of a misconception. So if you're poor, you're fine.
Okay.
Because they'll never turn anybody away here. And if you don't have money, then you just can't afford services. You might not get the best services. It's when you're in the middle.
So because I
It's
saw
the
that
middle here that gets absolutely when you hear about medical bankruptcy.
Yeah.
It's the people in the middle
Okay.
who you have just enough money where you don't qualify for full subsidy.
Yeah.
But you not enough money to not go bankrupt.
Okay. Because I watched that Michael Moore film about the health service in America, and it looked pretty bad.
Gets so fucking hot.
I think it's probably one of like if you have money, it's probably one of the best in the world.
Okay.
But the problem is the insurance. Like I have some weird insurance currently where I don't know. It's only for
I'm raw dogging it
catastrophe.
right now. I got nothing.
Yeah,
No.
this guy's living on the edge.
It's more risk-taking behavior, high T.
Yeah, we were discussing testosterone earlier.
Were you?
Yeah.
I know absolutely nothing about it.
Well, apparently,
I'm happy.
apparently
I'm happy to blag it if you want to talk
well,
about
I
it.
feel like
Apparently
though,
it's,
that's the new gays versus
risk-taking.
old gays. The older, the new generation of gays is very like less testosterone.
Yeah, the old. I mean, the
I feel
old.
like your generation of gays is like tons of testosterone.
But
It's fucking,
I
you
think
know?
the generation above me, like the sort of old muscle queens.
Muscle queens,
You know,
that's a funny
I mean,
one.
you wouldn't mess with them because
Yeah,
they could
yeah.
pound you into the ground.
Yo,
you know?
muscle queen is so funny. That's a great
I mean,
term.
that's what they are. They're like the
It's like a gym, like super gym,
and
super
scary.
jacked.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Because also they lived through when it was illegal. So you wouldn't.
You're
so
a bit
they,
of a bad boy
Right.
too.
Yeah,
Because
That
you know
is-
they were in fights all the time, actual physical fights. So
Yeah.
you know,
I think here, as
Dude,
well,
that would be the funniest thing if you were like old school guy that was like, yo, let's go gay bash those guys, and you come back, you just the shit kicked out of you.
yeah.
You're just like, how did the gay bashing go? You have two black guys. You're just like, didn't work out.
I think it sort of happened that way sometimes.
Yeah.
you know?
That's so great.
I mean, justly so.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the healthcare system.
Some rugby
the
player
health-
just gets the shit kicked out of him by a fucking muscle queen.
muscle queen. I've never heard that before. But yeah, the healthcare system here is. I guess it just depends who you are. But yeah, it's the people in the middle who get
Okay.
screwed.
I was just because Michael Moore was interviewing somewhere, but he'd had two of his fingers cut off with an electric saw, and he said that he had to choose between one of the fingers because he couldn't afford to have both replaced.
And that's the thing. So that guy was probably like a blue collar guy.
Okay.
Who like he wasn't destitute.
Yeah.
He probably had some money and stuff.
Right.
So
but that would never happen in Britain. That would
No,
never happen.
not-
There's
not
no
in
way.
Canada
The NHS,
either.
I'm going to say, choose a finger.
No,
There's it's just not going to.
I've heard the NHS is very good.
Well, it's very good and it has flaws, and
Sure,
but
but
ultimately,
overall-
He could just say like, yeah, you're right though. But if you own a house, the problem is they're like, hey, it's $100,000, and you're like, I
Okay.
don't have it, and they're like, well, you do though. Like, you know what I mean?
so you have to become poor.
Well, otherwise you go bankrupt. They'll do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Like
they
just
would-
otherwise, like yeah, go do it, and then you go bankrupt.
No, well,
like, you know what I mean?
I think we have a great system. I think the NHS is fantastic. Like, I can get ill in any way at all, and I can go in and it's free, and I get cured.
My dad's
Yeah.
big
That's
on the Britain one being good.
It's
Yeah,
good.
the
It is
NHS
good.
is
It is
very
good.
good,
But
yeah.
here, people are terrified. They call it socialized medicine, don't they? And they think it's a really terrifying
But
idea.
that's the thing is it is like the way
I think I
it's
agree with your
discussed
synopsis
is
of
because
it.
it is socialized here.
Well, here it is.
It is. They say
Right.
it's not, but you're like, because when I lived in Canada, I was under the assumption that if you were poor and you got sick here, they let you die.
Right, but they don't.
They do not at all.
Okay. But they
not-
do make you choose between fingers if you saw them off.
if you happen to be middle class.
Well, that's not good either.
No,
Middle class
that's-
people have rights.
That's the thing, but nobody ever would talk about that it's the people in the middle who are getting screwed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's not good either. But you also have those sort of insurance. If you've got health insurance, you've got those people who are employed to try and discredit you. So when you
course.
put an application, they try and find any kind of pre-existing condition at any
Yeah,
point.
it's like
in
an
your pack.
insurance, like a
And that's
adjuster or
just deeply immoral. Imagine having that job.
Absolutely
Like,
it is.
you know.
Yeah.
That is funny. Yeah, going to the guy and be like, we know you got cancer, but
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Ryan,
we
like,
just found out how much Diet Coke you drink.
perfect
Yeah.
example.
That's it.
Is Ryan said he had like a bump on his head, and
Yeah.
then he went to go check it out.
I still have the bump too.
Yeah, but
Well, then or any kind of claim you make in later life, they'll say, well, you had a bump.
Yeah, you broke
know?
your leg. Well,
Yeah.
what about that bump on your head? I was weighing you down
but,
properly.
but
That's
it was
you
what, $500?
It was. I wanted,
What? To have a bump?
buddy. It was. I wanted to kill the guy. However, this chump's paying $500
But
a month.
here's the
so
difference, though, is so I have insurance. I pay
$500
No,
for him to
I
look at
pay-
the bump. It took him 4 seconds.
I pay
Okay.
$300 a month or something for my insurance, which is like the cheapest insurance that you could possibly get. It's
Yeah.
for only catastrophes. If I was in Ryan's position and I did the same thing, I would still pay the $500.
Okay.
It's not like the insurance is all the insurance is preventing me from.
Okay, so
as
who's
far
the
as I
real
understand,
chump then?
is if I get hit by a bus.
Okay.
And I have like $250,000 bill.
But when you like,
If I get
that
hit by
will
a
be
bus and I
covered.
do all this damage to the bus, then I
Yeah,
the
Ryan's
insurance
gonna be
covers
paying
it.
but wouldn't you prefer a system like the UK where you
Absolutely.
don't
Or Canada.
You don't have to pay any of it.
I mean, 100%.
Yeah, obviously,
I
yeah.
mean, my whole like part of my contingency plan is if I get really screwed up, I'm like, I just got to get over that border.
Right.
That is
You know,
true,
like I just
though.
have to get to to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
On Ontario, and then I'll.
And then
go
you're
to-
okay.
Yeah, but sometimes like if it's really bad, you can't.
Right.
But that's in the
That's
back
your-
of my mind.
That's your fault. You moved away. You made that decision.
No, but if you get like cancer or something, you go right back.
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
go right back.
If
But the
I had
problem is,
something
you're
like-
right. If you get hit by a car, basically you just don't want to get hit by a car.
just avoid cars, which is difficult here in New York. I didn't realize how crowded your roads are, and everyone's just screaming at each other.
Oh, and all the
You know,
people
they-
biking on the sidewalks here. If
Yeah.
I could criminalize one thing in New York City,
My buddy got hit by a bus and he was fine.
He was
like
alright.
he literally was drunk and then walked in front of a bus and the bus hit him or a streetcar, sorry, and then he flew and he like walked it off and it was just like,
was he
man.
was he a muscle queen?
He was like honestly pretty normal guy. It was
Right,
like
okay.
one of those things where everyone was like, holy shit, like he's gonna be dead, and then he got up and we're like,
That's pretty tough.
yeah, it was just like we just hit him the right.
Like, what an idiot.
He got hit in the right place and fell the right way and whatever it was.
Well, he's very fortunate.
We're super fortunate. But no, I was like, that's my contingency too. So I've been living on the edge right now.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Okay.
I can't live that way. But the system here is a mess. Did you ever get? Actually, I was maybe asking for your did you ever get for your personal Twitter ever suspensions, or is that?
No, I never did. I got when the Titania McGrath character got
Like, did
suspended.
they link? I wonder if the back end they link them.
Well, yeah,
Because-
but I evaded that because I bought a second phone. I was behaving like a drug dealer, basically,
Evasion.
so that I could do satire.
That's so crazy.
Because I knew that Twitter were like this, so I had this second phone with a different number, and I never connected it through the same IP address.
Now we're talking.
So I did all of that, and then that's why when Titania got first, she got a 7-day ban. She got 2 or 3 7-day bans, and then a couple of day bans, and then a complete permanent suspension. They call it a permanent suspension, but that's a semantic contradiction. You can't be permanently suspended. Anyway,
Right,
so,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they emailed her saying you're not coming back. That's it. And then a few people complained, like some prominent people complained, and then she came back. So yeah, they hit her a lot, but I never got any of it because I'm not a naturally offensive person. So
Yeah.
the stuff I tweet is really anodyne. And also what she was tweeting and getting suspended for was nothing. It didn't make any
Yeah.
sense. It was just they
Yeah,
didn't
none of
like
it
it.
ever-
They just didn't like her.
They just didn't like it. But I just
Yeah.
wonder, seeing with the Twitter files and like the back end stuff, like I do wonder, like, because you see the extent. I always assumed it was all automated.
No. I mean, basically, these people's jobs effectively was to censor every day.
Yeah, like they were just censors.
Just go through and sort of get.
But
rid of
like
things.
I don't. In my mind, I always thought all of this stuff. Maybe I was naive, but every time something happened, I'd be like, "Oh, just got caught up in the net."
Sometimes it was. I mean, sometimes I got like bans or temporary bans when I mentioned things relating to violence. So you know what I mean. So like if she was saying she's going to punch people,
Sure.
even if it was obvious joke.
Yeah.
If you use the word punch, it would get flagged, and then it would get.
But I imagine you would appeal that, right? Because there was always a thing where you could say like, "Hey,
I think what happened is the algorithm picked it up, and then someone looked at it,
And
they saw the word punch, misunderstood it, and
Okay.
just got rid of it.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
what happened, really.
That's the version here of that job, is like looking through these. That's the version of being the Chinese guy in the
Yeah.
in the forums, being like,
So the
government's pretty sick, right?
Yeah. So the better system is just do what Elon's done, which is to sack everyone.
Yeah.
And don't censor it at all. I mean, he's still talking about how he wants to sort of restrict reach on certain hateful tweets, or indeed.
But the tweet's not the person. That's what.
Yeah.
I actually think that for all of them, that's such a better thing, because it's like, I honestly don't really have that much of a problem in my mind if I was like, okay, someone posted this thing and they really don't like that thing, so then but like now it's like the next thing is not
Yeah.
affected. That to me is like, I'd way prefer that.
But wouldn't it be a better system just to say that this is a platform which is open to everyone, and the user takes responsibility for what they want to see and what they don't want to see? That's
so
the easiest thing.
If we're saying like, if I got my perfect way, sure, I
Yeah.
might say something like that, right?
Right.
But I'm just saying like, this is like me compromising.
Yeah.
Of saying like, listen,
I get it. So you're saying this is better than the alternative. But you don't need to block Kanye West. I can block Kanye West if I don't want to see his tweet. Yeah, I don't need someone up there telling me what I can and can't
Sure.
look at. That's all.
I
there's-
agree with that, but I don't think they see it that way.
No, they don't.
And
Well, no,
I'm-
the reason they don't see it that way is because they bought into this ridiculous idea that if there are hateful ideas out there, or people express views that are pernicious, that will spread and contaminate other people, and that we know that's not true. So I mean, that's
Kanye West was a good litmus test of that, because
Yeah.
you're just like, okay, when he was everywhere and he was started to say this stuff here, because it's almost like there's a spectrum of how bad the stuff is, like how
Yeah.
aggressive the stuff is versus how popular, because the truth is he was probably not as aggressive stuff when he was allowed everywhere. Like if you watch Drink Champs versus what he's
Yeah,
saying now.
for sure.
So it's like the more you censor him, usually the more aggressive the message gets.
Yeah.
Because people naturally, the more, if you're talking to tons of people, you're going to be less aggressive than when you're talking to a small amount of people.
Right.
So it's like, would you think that it was, it made people like, if you say that Kanye was spreading anti-Semitism, right?
Yeah.
If that's the argument, do you think that it was spread more before he was kicked off or more after he was kicked off?
But what do you mean, like from the stuff he did?
Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay, if you were
Yes, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but
so
I mean,
that's a good case study of like, did kicking him off of things make it worse or better in terms of like, I don't like people talking about Jewish people?
For his specific instance?
Okay, if you were the ADL and you go, hey, look at everyone's anti-Semitic,
I am
it's
the
Kanye
ADL.
West's fault. Was it?
You are the ADL.
Did you make it worse? Was it worse? Did Kanye West make anti-Semitism worse in their opinion before he was kicked off everything or after?
I think their opinion would be like the worst things he said made it worse.
It's irrelevant whether he's kicked off.
Yeah.
I know. It's just, I mean,
But I mean, if he's kicked off, I mean, his reach is like less people. If you put like the rankings of everything, I'm sure the last thing he did with Gavin McInnes was the least seen thing he did, and the Alex, like it probably went like.
yeah, but the people who saw it are going to be the diehards, the sort
Yeah,
of
of course.
the most pernicious.
And those are the
you
people
know.
who have those beliefs regardless.
Exactly.
anyways,
There
for
is
the most
that.
part,
Exactly.
so.
But, I mean, historically, whenever you censor something, it drives those things underground and they grow.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the time.
Where I would prefer him to just say this stuff out in the open.
Yeah, and we all know now what he is. We know he's an anti-Semite, and we know what he thinks, and that's it's quite good that we know that.
It also
you
does
see
kind of
the,
become like laughable as opposed
Yeah.
to like if someone's like crazy, like let's say head of the KKK, like back in the day, like when Howard Stern used to have him on, it almost was kind of like you'd roll your eyes at it.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
right. When they're like, the more underground it is, the more it is kind of like a serious taboo topic.
Sure.
Well,
That's
yeah,
sort of-
exactly. And you know,
Oh, why can't we
it's-
talk
it's-
about
it's,
it?
It's great when
Do they
these-
have some like good point I can't hear?
well, these people out themselves, don't they? That's why, like with the Westboro Baptist Church, it wasn't good when people tried to censor them. You know, you want to hear who these people are and what they want to say, and also the videos they did were really funny. I don't know if you remember. They
It
used to
was
do,
a
like-
funny era.
Yeah,
that
all of
was
that.
Those signs. It was whoever was
It's
in
so
charge of their
ridiculous.
sign making really propelled them into like a
Hated
different
cigarettes.
stratosphere.
I mean, I thought they were
stratosphere of fame.
trolling for a while. Like I couldn't, because it's so extreme and ridiculous. But they weren't, were they? They're
No.
sincerely held beliefs.
I mean, you got to be a next level troll to go at a funeral.
yeah,
Protesting a funeral,
The
being like,
army
it's just
funeral.
a goof.
But there are some next level trolls. There's that Dylan Mulvaney guy who's pretending to be a girl. I mean,
You think that's a troll?
You think that's
of course
a
it is.
troll?
Of course it is. Yes, absolutely it is.
I think that's like maybe a get famous scheme more than a troll.
Oh no, but like he's playing on such obviously misogynistic stereotypes. He knows it's got to be a lie. It's got to be. I think he's.
I think there might be like I know this will piss off Republicans. Maybe that's like the troll aspect.
You don't think? Oh come on! Nobody
Do you
thinks.
think when
that-
he goes home,
No,
he's
d-
like, "This is all a bit"?
Have you seen his videos? Like he thinks that being
Is
a
he,
girl.
like invited to the White House?
He
and
thinks
stuff?
it being a girl is being ditzy and falling over,
Yeah,
being
yeah.
scared of dragonflies, and
So do
like, so you know.
And so do I.
Well, I know you do, but you're a misogynist, right? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the thing. But
I
like,
mean, you're basically describing my girlfriend right now. But,
Yo, yeah.
So, but you can't believe he's being serious.
Yeah.
Like, and isn't that an amazing deep cover troll to get to the White House? That's amazing. It's like that guy Ollie London who said he was trans Korean,
right, and then now
you
he's,
think it's in that category?
Well, I mean, he got surgery to change his face to look Korean. He even started talking about how he was going to get surgery to have a smaller penis so he could be more
That's
Korean.
insane.
So that's deep level trolling.
I was thinking
right?
about having a
But does there
minus
have
smaller
to be-
penis just so I could be average.
You should do that actually, because it is cumbersome, isn't it? It is. It gets in the way.
Oh, you get
Fucking up
kicked in the
his back.
shin all of a sudden.
But so, do you think then does this troll require some sort of reveal?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the reveal. Am I wrong about it? I think
I don't think.
I
this
don't.
is a
I don't.
troll.
I'm not. It's a theory. I don't have
Yeah,
the
it's a
answer.
theory, absolutely. You could
but
be
like,
right.
this is the question, I guess. Like, is there anyone they've let in on the bit? Like, do they have? Is there a confidant? Do you think where
I would love
Dylan
this to be-
Mulvaney is going to their person? Like, yeah, obviously, I'm
It's like, can
messing
you believe
around.
this? Like, I'm invited to the
It's
fucking
working.
White House.
Yeah, can you believe this? It's
I
working.
mean, I don't know. I think I'm thinking. In
I
terms
know
of,
people that are
but-
that cooked.
Yeah.
Really? No, but I'm just thinking in terms of Occam's razor, right? What is more likely that this guy genuinely thinks that perpetuate these old stereotypes, 1950s stereotypes of what it means to be a woman is progressive, or he's taking the piss? And I think the latter is more likely.
I think there is a third option.
Okay, go on.
So the third option is they, did like a little bit of like feminine stuff on TikTok.
Yeah.
Everyone told them how great it was. And then they had a video where they're like, I'm actually transitioning into a girl. It went viral. Half the people hated, and then like
Right.
you kind of
Maybe.
like, you slowly become more and more. I mean, have you seen this with anything, right? Like
You've seen it
how
with
many comedians
comedians.
you've said like, Jim Jeffries like makes a bit about guns. Now you're the gun guy. Like,
Okay.
they might have been like dipping her toe into this like sort of waters, and then it's working, and all of a sudden you're making money, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe it's that too.
I'd love
and
to-
then all of a sudden the president's like, you can come to the White
Yeah.
House, and then you're like, yeah, I am a girl. I don't know. Maybe there's like
I'd like to talk to him about it. I really would. I'd be fascinated.
big
I think it's
person.
really
I
the
don't
show.
think he wants to talk about it.
No, I know.
No,
but it'd be
no,
interesting.
but that would
Okay,
be
well,
a-
I'm willing.
I'm not saying that I'm wrong either. I'm right.
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
I could be wrong. Of course, I could
I
be wrong.
hope
but
you're right.
I just think it makes more sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's funnier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah,
Because the
absolutely.
videos are funny.
Yeah.
If he's joking, they are really funny.
Yeah,
Right?
that is super funny. If you're just
Yeah.
like, I'm going to barely change anything, and I'm going to become the most famous girl. I'm going to go to the White House
Yeah,
as a girl.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Still still going to have the dick, like fucking the whole package.
Just everything. Just barely change anything. One of the most respected women in America right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
No,
they do
and
that-
probably getting rich. That's the part
Yes.
that
Well,
we're
he will be
forgetting.
getting rich. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
there is that.
the part where I was like, yeah, I get the troll, but you're just like, once you're like, hey, I'm like rich now. Maybe it's like, is this a troll or is this my business model?
Yeah. But could you really live with that? I mean, like, even doing sort of tampon, promoting tampons and things like at some point you would say to yourself, look, this is just too offensive, isn't it? Like,
Sure.
Like you kind of get home at night, you close the door, you're by yourself, like cut the
Yeah,
shit, and you go
yeah.
like, what am I doing?
Exactly.
what are we doing here?
This is getting that.
I'm fascinated by
It's getting away
people
from me.
who devote their lives to a complete fantasy. I mean, it is interesting, but maybe he's bought
That's
into
comedy.
it. I don't know. Yeah.
That is
Maybe.
comedy right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly.
That is. I've never thought about that, but I hope you're right.
Yeah,
That would
I
be good if
hope I'm right.
also, imagine like Prince Harry was trolling too. Like he comes over and he goes, jokes hate this bitch.
So do you all really love Meghan over here? Is that right?
I love her.
Show him the tattoo. Have you got? Yeah, show him the tattoo.
I have the tattoos. I got her photos all over. Not once I moved to America, I don't want people to know about me. When I was in Canada, I was a big God Save the Queen guy. I had
I love the monarchy.
I'm a bit of a Merkel head. I don't know what to tell you.
Do you have a Queen tattoo?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't
taking you
Taking the
seriously.
piss.
We did have the Queen on the Money in Canada, but that's about it.
course you did. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
but I will say the Harry thing it's sort of captivated America, I guess.
it has.
But like to me, my take on it was just like Harry can't handle a girl like that. Like
I do find it. I mean,
those sheltered guys. He doesn't know how to handle a Hollywood woman like that.
Well, I'm not.
I feel like I could kick her.
I haven't seen the document. I really don't have any interest in it. Well,
I'm not watching
the limit of my interest is how I love that she keeps getting caught lying. I mean, that's really funny.
What were
to
the
me.
lies that you got going with?
Oh my God, she said that when she went to the premiere of The Lion King in London, the South African actor in the show came to her and said, you know, when you married Harry, the people out in the streets of Africa were dancing like they did when Mandela was released.
No.
That's what she
Get
said,
outta
right?
here.
And then we then discovered that the actor, the only South African actor in that show, didn't go to the premiere and wasn't even in town and never met her.
Oh, she's like a pathological. Well, she's an
Pathological liar.
The thing is, I'm
I
sure
love
you
it.
know
Yeah.
actors and stuff. And you're like,
By the way,
"Ugh."
she also said that they got married a few days in secret before the wedding. They got married a few days in secret with the Archbishop of Canterbury, right? And the Archbishop of Canterbury has said that did not happen. That's an insane lie. And she's got this really great lie. She has this anecdote she always trots out about writing to
that's
Hillary
great.
Clinton and Hillary Clinton writing to her. And then Variety fact checked it and took it out of the article because they realized it wasn't true. So I think she has I think she just keeps getting caught in lies.
Well, she's an actor.
But
It's working for
That's
her.
all,
But
yeah.
why would anyone trust what she's got to say?
I'm telling you, I feel like I've dated multiple girls like her.
Really?
And they just go lie. Okay, well, whatever. They blah blah blah. They just keep moving. Just keep moving until you get what you want.
Are you saying that women are more have a propensity for falsehood?
I'm saying there's a certain type of woman. And it's that
Okay.
like kind of Hollywood, like Instagram model type. Like the,
Yeah.
you know, I'm gonna be rich and famous, and a guy's gonna help, and I don't care any of the other parts.
Yeah.
All I know is that I'm getting rich.
I mean, she was pretty rich and famous before him.
Not-
That's
oh,
not
yeah.
this level.
Oh come on! She was in a big
Not this
series, she was in
level.
that Suits thing,
Suits,
right?
yeah.
She must be making quite a bit of money from that, but then nothing compared
Not
to what
like
you.
this.
Probably
No,
like $1 million a
No,
year.
exactly.
Yeah, not like.
But it is
owning the kind of, I'm sure, real estate she
yeah,
owns.
of course. But maybe, I mean,
I think they own half of Netflix now.
but you're putting a motive on it, and the motive is money. I'm more interested in people
No,
who,
power.
Is it power?
Yeah.
But what about these people?
Winning.
People who just lie. I'm really interested by people who just instantly
Okay.
lie.
You're
And
saying
that's-
it. I got you.
I think there's something about that. I mean, I've known people like that who will just automatically jump to a lie, and you don't know. And
Did
there
you
are-
see this movie? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. They just do it.
Yeah.
And I am interested in that kind of person, but I don't know
Yeah.
why they exist or what they're doing.
Ego,
exactly.
maybe I don't know. I don't know why you just.
There's
do that.
something about that sort of mind that I find quite
that
interesting.
you just like have this infallibility. You don't
Yeah.
want to be ever like seen as weak
Don't-
or
don't-
wrong or.
Yeah. That,
or
you
maybe
just, like,
maybe it is to do with control. Maybe it's to do with the fact that you get the satisfaction of knowing that everyone else is buying into an untruth, and you've got the control over that truth. I mean, that's an interesting psychological prospect. You know, maybe I should try it. I'll just try a week of lying. Just lie about absolutely
Do
everything,
one
yeah.
week of your show where you're
Yeah.
just like
Just
all
look-
just.
Oh well, I know I do lie on stage. I mean, of course, as a
Alter
stand-up,
Sure.
you're lying all the time, you know, and that's
Yeah.
kind of fun as well because it's. Well, I don't know. It might be different what type of stand-up you are, but like, because my stand-up is a sort of warped persona of who I am.
Sure.
So then you get to lie, and it is fun.
Yeah.
No, mine's
Actually, it is fun.
more just like a bigger piece of shit. Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like I just do like the more like villainous version of myself.
Exactly. So why do so many stand-ups do they sort of take the worst aspects of their own personality
I don't
and
know.
accentuate them?
I just do it
Why?
'cause it's
Why
funny.
not?
Well,
Sometimes
because
I'll
the
say awful
quirks are the
things.
funny parts.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
I'll say awful things because I go, "That's the funniest thing to say," and then I'll be like,
Awful things are really funny. I mean, if
I know.
you say the worst possible thing, which is why the kind of woke thing is so mirthless, because to say the worst possible thing is the worst possible thing in their mind. So
Yeah.
they
Right.
and it's strange because we never used. Heckles have. It might be different here, but in the UK, heckles have changed in tone. Heckles used to be probably drunk, someone trying to be funny, someone trying to be funnier than you, someone trying to do that kind of thing. And the new kind of heckle is the kind of pearl clutching. How dare you say that? This is morally objectionable. It's a weird development.
We had a friend of ours, actually, Aaron Berg, who just did a Gotham comedy last week, and he posted the video, and this woman was like, "You're racist," and all this, and going
Yeah.
on the
Turns
whole-
out she's like a blogger. The whole
yeah, she's
thing.
some blogger.
Right,
Like,
okay.
They always have some sort of skin in the game.
But the trouble is, it kind of works in the UK. I mean, a friend of mine was performing at a club in Brighton, and a couple of activists tweeted the venue and said, her material makes us feel unsafe. And they did pull her gig, and she lost a couple of £100. You know, I mean, so it does have that power.
You don't want to be
you know.
working at the venues where the owner's a pussy.
no, New York,
You know, but there's more of them in the UK than here. Most
Okay.
people would pull it.
Canada the same, but New York, you legitimately have to commit actual crime
Really?
for them to care.
I think
I feel I remember even like the guy would be like, yeah, a lot of the club owners like might be like, oh my god, then they come back and they're like, yeah,
I think-
I'll put this in the recycling bin.
things are better here. Like your promoters are tougher. Your promoters will tell people to fuck off if they
The
are being
industry
unreasonable.
works how you're describing.
Yeah.
I always think the industry, like the actual like TV networks, and like if you had a commercial and
Yeah,
some,
yeah.
you know, whatever, it doesn't take much to get you fired. But I think comedy club owners, like, they
Yeah.
feel like they hate that shit too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why they started a comedy club.
I
'cause
wonder
they're-
why it's happened over the UK then. That's weird to me. But it has. It is like that now among many promoters. And I don't know. Maybe it's just because they don't want the risk. Because of course now with social media,
At that
you
point,
know-
though, why like be in the comedy club business? Like if you're
Right.
if you're like, hey, I want like. There's nothing probably that sucks more as like owning a store or whatever than dealing with like complainers.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're like, hey, imagine running any other thing where you go, okay, I'm gonna have a store and someone complains, be like, hey, get rid of that. Someone's like, hey, I didn't like this flavor. Oh my god, that's gone.
And all
Like, you
your
know what I mean?
employees like actively court these complainers because they think it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they're always
Although
like,
that is how most businesses work.
Like,
When
yeah.
people complain, they say, "Oh, well, we'll do anything to sort of solve it and sort you out." That is how most businesses work. But comedy shouldn't work that way.
no.
You know?
Comedy's like the thing that specifically should not work that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it depends on what the thing is, though. Like, okay, so if you were, I guess this is where it's different because the person, if you were at a store like Walmart,
Yeah.
and you were like, if you came and said, hey, you know what, I really didn't like this person, they were rude to me.
Yes.
And you might reprimand that person. But if you said, hey, I really hate this bucket, you shouldn't sell this bucket, and
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, it's our number one selling bucket, thanks for the tip, but we're going to keep selling the bucket.
Sure, yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
different.
okay. Well, it's about levels of being unreasonable.
The product versus the person, and I guess with stand up, you're both. That's the problem.
Say, well, it's like My Pillow.
What about how is it like My Pillow?
Well, My Pillow was the person, and there was a product, and then they hated the person so much that they stopped
hated
selling
the
the product.
okay.
What was My Pillow?
It's Mike Lindell. It's the guy
He's
who
like a
was
big
he was like
Trump
a
guy.
Trump
Okay.
sycophant.
Okay.
Who was
and he had a pillow.
So he has this. He's famous. He used to be a crackhead, and then he turned his life around, and he started selling this pillow. And
Yeah.
he's a very religious Christian guy, and it's like a huge product. It was massive, like ads everywhere.
Yeah.
Made in America pillow, very popular. And then he started supporting Trump, and then with the January 6th stuff, he's like, the election was stolen. He got kicked off of everywhere for saying the elections were stolen, and it just got to the point where all these companies were like, we can't even carry your pillows anymore.
Okay. Well, that's
Like,
tragic.
Yeah, it's really.
Were they good pillows?
Not really.
Well-
It depends who you ask.
No, I've heard good things about
Depends who you ask. They were like, some people say they were good, some people say they're average.
Danny was doing My Pillow bet on stage, and you'd always talk to people, and every single person said they liked the pillow.
That's not true. No, so
Really?
the odd person would say they liked the pillow.
I could make my peace having a nice pillow if I knew the person who made the pillow had horrible opinions. I could deal with that. I could square that circle.
They weren't even like, he wasn't even like, it's not Kanye West opinions. They're just like, hey, I think there were some improprieties in the election.
I could
You're
even
like,
have
what does this have to do with pillows?
I could even have a fascist's pillow if it was a nice pillow
Yeah.
and I was getting a good night's sleep. I could
Sure,
I could deal
sleep
with
like Himmler.
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. That's a great new brand.
Yeah, and now all his ads are just on, because I think his ads were generally on Fox.
Okay.
But were spread around, and now he's just like, he can only advertise, and like all his like,
Okay.
he's like use like promo code stolen election. Like he's so leaning into it, like the whole thing.
Didn't you have something with Chick-fil-A as well? Is that
Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A. You see, this is how I know nothing about America.
I
But didn't
love
they say
Chick-fil-A.
something? Because I saw that was.
No,
Do you think he's
Chick-fil-A
doing
was
it-
the most
Do you think he does
manufactured.
it the sort of the way that someone's like, Justin Bieber, never heard of him?
Nah.
I think he's trying to-
No, I'm literally very ignorant about this country.
No, Chick-fil-A was one of the most manufactured things.
What was
because-
their thing? What was
so
their deal?
the Chick-fil-A scandal was, so Chick-fil-A is owned by a Christian family.
Okay.
And they're closed on Sundays,
Yeah.
which is like crazy for a company of their size.
Well, but it's the Sabbath.
But it's the Sabbath,
Yeah.
and they're religious or whatever. And then it was determined that I think it was the CEO gave a donation
Yes.
of his 1,000 donations to some cause that was like one of their things.
Yes.
Was anti-gay marriage.
Okay.
But it was like one of many donations that he
And
made
so what happens?
as a civilian.
Do people boycott?
Yeah.
So if you now have chicken at
Now
their places,
nobody cares. It's over.
They boycott it
This is
very
5 years.
temporarily.
This is 5 years.
but they
ago.
were saying that if you ate there, you're a homophobe.
Literally. I remember I posted when I moved to New York, because at the time there was no Chick-fil-A in Canada, and I posted because they had these I think I posted because they have these like really high-tech garbage
Yeah.
cans there or whatever. It's like a compactor or whatever, and I posted it, and someone actually messaged me being like, someone I
Wow.
knew who's like, you're still like supporting homophobia.
Okay.
A comic?
No, just some girl.
But
Oh, a girl.
But they've forgotten it now. That's weird.
Everything.
Why aren't they committed
Every
to this?
scandal, there's very few scandals that have any sort of life. to
Okay.
them. Like almost everything.
But also that one doesn't make sense
passes.
anyway. I mean, there were loads of sort of old school gay activists who were against gay marriage. I mean, that was like a pretty standard view in the UK anyway.
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
mean? Sorry, I don't miss.
Well, because marriage was seen as a kind of sort of heteronormative institution.
Oh,
and so the idea of being gay and in a marriage is almost self-defeating.
of course.
So you know, there were loads of gay activists who were against gay marriage.
It's also like the guy that like has a guy he's been with for 10 years. It's
Well,
like-
there's also that.
But it's funny being like, hey, you're going pretty hard on this anti-gay marriage stuff. You're just like, I just.
Well, there is also that, but it's a really conservative thing, marriage, right? And that's why it was the Conservative Party in the UK that pushed through gay marriage.
Yeah.
it wasn't the left. So that, I get why. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I think if you're gonna have state partnerships enshrined in marriage, you have to offer it to everyone. I think
Sure.
it's a no-brainer. But
Me too,
But
obviously, yeah.
I don't think it's automatically homophobic to say that you disapprove of gay marriage. And also, if you're religious and you see marriage as a religious thing, I don't think it's homophobic either.
I don't think some of those arguments I see is like not necessarily like homophobic, but I
Yeah.
see it more like ideological and like not set in reality.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
feel like some of that stuff you're just, it's when people are like arguing for certain things and you're like, okay, well, good luck with that. But like, it's just so, America, like maybe America will roll it back that way, but it's like,
Yeah.
that's not, I'll tell you what, that's not going to be free if you did roll that back for 4 years and then it would go back again. But
But also, it's all happened so quickly, hasn't it? I mean, because even Obama was against gay marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
Everyone was,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's just not going to
just
see change. So you've got to accept that some people are going to take a while to catch up with that or accept
Sure.
that.
And
it's
again,
too quick.
no,
it's this purity thing.
That for sure, yeah.
Like it's a purity thing where
Yeah.
you're like, if you have this one wrong thought, then you're
Yeah.
like, well, we cancel your whole chain of chicken sandwiches
Yeah.
places or whatever. Like this, I don't know.
We had a similar thing with a gay cake. I don't know if you've. It's in Belfast.
Oh, we've talked about the gay cake.
All right.
Yeah.
No, not
Wait,
from the UK.
They had a different one?
We had a gay cake in Belfast in Northern Ireland. Yeah, so it was a Christian bakery.
I wonder if that was like a copycat gay cake scandal.
'Cause
I think it came first. You know.
So
think-
the American one was a copycat.
Oh, well, actually, no. That's it. I don't know which.
So
is it
in
the same
Colorado,
story?
Well, Colorado was a baker, and he's very religious, and he refused to make it. And they keep dragging it back into the courts,
Okay.
because he refuses to do it, and then they keep going there to ask.
Oh, it's
him.
still going on.
Well, it seems like it's perpetual, because he'll say like a couple will say like, "Hey, can you make me a cake?" And then
Wait,
he'll say,
more people just keep
no,
going?
and then like a trans person shows up and they're like, "We want a trans birthday cake," and he's like, "No," and then they go, "Okay," and then they sue him again.
This is. I mean, gay people should be making their own cakes anyway. I think.
yeah,
That,
it's just they're just
tormenting this guy.
in
prove a
Belfast, it was
point.
really innocuous. They wanted something to do with a support of gay marriage, and they had who are the two puppets from the Muppet Show who share a bed? Eric and Bert and Ernie.
Bert and Ernie, yeah.
Right, so there was a picture of them, and so it was really sort of innocent. It was, and they said, "No, we're not going to." It's just about the design, you know. And it doesn't. So you know, and I think everyone comes out badly there. Like the gay guy could have just gone next door to the next bakery, and they could have just baked the cake.
The Ernie and Bert.
You know, so I just feel like no one can, and it's a very odd one as well. Because I do get the point that they weren't discriminating against him for being gay. They didn't say, "I'm not baking this cake because you're gay." They're saying, "I'm not baking the cake because I don't support the message on the cake."
Sesame Street.
I don't like Sesame Street, which I think is legitimate. What if you came in and said, "You know, I want a pro-ISIS cake"? I think it would be okay to say, "I don't want to bake that."
Sure.
Well, I guess their idea is you're not allowed to. They make a list of things that you can't discriminate against, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it's like you
Protected
actually
classes.
you're allowed. Yeah, and you go ISIS is not in that list.
Well, maybe it should be in that list.
Maybe it should be.
ISIS should be a protected class.
Well, I mean,
here
you know,
first.
they've got their rights and their beliefs.
Yeah.
I think they're very misunderstood.
So what happened? I just want to say this podcast is officially pro. No,
Sponsored by.
Bro, everybody. It's Kanye West. We love everybody.
yeah. Is that you? Are you on record saying you also love Hitler?
I love I love everybody.
You're just leaving it at that.
Yeah.
It's a very problematic statement.
I know.
Because there's a lot of people included in that statement, which are...
I mean, everybody's included.
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
statement.
Genghis
Quite
Khan.
literally.
You love pedophiles.
I love everybody.
You love pedophiles equally the same as
I'm
the people
gonna
stopping pedophiles.
I'm gonna clip,
not one
I'm
ounce
gonna
more.
clip you saying love pedophiles there. Even though
you're
I
the
guess
one
I
that
just did
says
it
you love
myself,
them.
But
I'm pretty sure
I
I said
love everybody.
There you go.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
So what happened with the Ernie and Bert thing? What was the legislation? Who won?
Who won that one? I think the cake guy.
Yeah, the baker
bakers
won here, too.
Cake guy won.
But it was very weird because I was in Belfast very soon after it, and there was a pride parade on that day, and they had armed police outside the bakery because they were scared of the gays sort of trashing the bakery, you know, which I think is inappropriate behaviour for gay
Yeah.
people. For a pride parade, you're meant to be about peace and love and harmony, not trashing.
Yeah, the problem is once you start taking these ideas that are like the forcing things, you know.
Yeah.
Once you start extrapolating it, you eventually wind up at something that everybody hates. Everybody
Right.
will wind up at one thing where they go like, yeah, I guess you shouldn't force this business to participate in this thing.
Yeah.
Eventually.
But also, I obtusely
Yes.
kind of want to be on the side of the baker, because also like I don't like Pride. I steer well clear of it.
You don't go to the Pride Parade?
I hate it.
Did you used to like it or never liked it?
Never really. I don't really like crowds, but also
Are you single?
No.
Okay, it's more of a fun thing when you're single.
No, but
probably, too.
when I was young and single, and I would avoid the Pride thing. I don't like the idea of
Okay.
everyone sort of being collected together.
You don't like being lumped in.
Yeah, expressing the same views. Like there's a thing in my mind when everyone's together and they're all enjoying the same thing or saying the same thing. I get nervous. I had to walk out of the Lady Gaga concert for the same reason, because everyone was enjoying themselves, and I felt there should be more diversity. There should be some people objecting and saying this is bit. There should be more dissent.
More dissent.
I feel like it's got a kind of fascistic. You know, a bit like a rally.
Yeah. I mean,
I do kind of know what you mean.
Yeah.
Though. Like if everyone loves something, you're just like, I mean, it's not that great.
Yeah, exactly. You want to put the other side across.
You're like,
You know?
yeah, you're at like a funeral and everyone's just one after another talking about how
Yeah.
great they are. Not a
the
single
haters?
One stand up and say, I didn't like him. I didn't like him. Although someone did that recently. Did you see that viral funeral clip?
Oh, we did, yeah.
Where she said about her dad.
They're going on about her dad. Yeah. Do
yeah.
you think she was just a contrarian? She's like, I mean,
yeah.
She actually had something really nice planned, and then she's like, "Well, I'll be a hack
She's
at
just
this
a-
point."
I think she was just like, I want to play devil's advocate here, right? Okay, what if he was a horrible guy.
She's just a hipster, yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. But yeah, Pride I don't do. But I mean, I accidentally got caught in one year I was at a Pride. I was near a Pride parade and I got locked in a restaurant at Pizza Express because fascists turned up to attack the gay people at the Pride. But that was back in the day when you had
when
that.
fascists actually like meant something.
But they don't do that anymore. They probably join in, you know. It's a big change. But also I don't because the Pride has sort of morphed into this weird. It's mostly straight people now.
It's corporate.
It's like a straight day out, and you bring your family and your kids, and you know, there's nothing subversive about it. It's so. And I hate going into
corporate thing. Yeah, it's
the
like
flag
the Santa
everywhere.
Claus parade, basically, or Thanksgiving parade.
Yeah. And I hate going into a restaurant and I've got the rainbow
With
flag
ball
all over
gags.
my, you know, and I'm like, I don't need to be told. Well, I went into a Wagamama and there was a sign saying, you know, we're proud to hire gay people. I thought, well, why wouldn't you be? Like,
It's like, were you not before?
I would
Was this
assume that
policy?
you don't hate gays. You don't need to tell me.
Just so you know, we don't hate gay
The problem
people
is
here. we have good pancakes and we even hire gays.
Yeah. Just don't tell me that because it makes me suspicious.
Right.
Someone says to me, I really don't hate gays. I think you hate gays. Like, why would you have to say
It was,
that?
you know what it is because there's one chain that started doing that.
Yeah.
And then they were the first ones. They go, hey, we don't hate gays. And everybody's like,
also
wait,
don't
so
hate
do we,
gays.
if we don't say it, does that mean
Right,
imply that
exactly.
we
You shouldn't
do?
have to say what is the
And then
default expectation.
Right. And then
you know.
everybody has to just start saying the default thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just so you know, we are gays here. I remember my first memory that I always think of when I went to the gay pride parade was we got stuck in the parade. Like my family was driving home and I was like 8 and this guy with like nipple tassels and the whole thing comes up to the window and he goes, we're prouds, we're gay, so get out of our way. That was his chant that he was saying to every car.
Why?
We're like, what is this? And my dad's like, just kids, like, don't worry about it.
But the fetishy thing is quite weird as well. Like, you know,
It got a little much.
you know, that's not who
Things
you
got a little
are
ahead.
innately. That's just something you like to do.
Yeah, things got out of hand.
I find it a bit odd. Because it's not just gay pride. You've also got the pride for the various different identities and flags. And there's a bear pride parade. You know bears?
Yeah.
So are you quite a bear? Are you quite beary?
I would be. I would be a
bear.
I think I would be.
If he was true to himself.
Oh, you're not gay.
I'm not gay.
You're
No,
not gay.
no,
Okay,
no,
fine.
no.
But you would make a decent bear.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I
You
think
would make
so,
a
yeah.
decent
You would be an otter, right? Probably.
What's an otter?
You would
Is that
be
an old twink?
What's an otter?
An otter is like a sort of athletic, semi-hairy.
I think I heard this before.
Yeah, sort of semi-hairy, athletic.
It's like a twink. That
Athletic,
ages,
you hear that?
ages out.
You seem quite athletic. I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah.
So athletic is
So like if you're a bear, like an otter is a subcategory. of
otter's
bear.
sort of like jacked and gay,
Yeah.
dude. Like
But you can be like a wolf. Wolf is sort of semi-hairy, muscular, and sexually aggressive. That would be a wolf. You can be a gym rat if you go to the. You can be
Not a
you can be a
gym
pup. A pup
He's
is like
definitely not a
a
gym
cub. A cub is like a bear, a young bear, a sort of a hairy twink.
I think
A hairy twink would be a cub. So
I'm too old for it to be.
so
a
it is
cub.
like a menagerie. There's very specific classifications of the gays.
Everything just always gets chopped up.
and let's
Yeah.
hear more
It's just
about
like
otter again.
Otters are very sought after. You would be very.
Okay.
I think you would do
you
well.
Don't say.
Do people self-identify as these things? And
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
and then people are like, "You're not that."
They do,
Like, is
well,
that
yeah, they
similar?
do.
Where they go like, "Hey, I'm an otter." You go, "Come on."
No, it's
Yeah.
one of those things where people probably put it in their Grindr profiles and like I'm an otter, and you show up, you go an otter, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's you get catfished.
more like a catfish.
Yeah, you look like an otter that got eaten by a bear. You look like the bear that ate the otter. Pal.
I don't mind the bears getting together and having their parade, but you know they've never been discriminated against as
Is there a
a
bear
group.
parade?
Yeah, there's a bear pride. They've got their own flag. It's got a little paw on the flag. Bear pride.
Really?
And they go on a march, but they haven't been discriminated against. There isn't a history of people burning fat hairy men at the stake. That's
I
not
guess
a thing,
because they're physically imposing.
could be that. But I think they've always been fine. You know, I understood gay pride in the early years when you know it's illegal. There's discrimination.
course.
You know, you're going to get locked away.
I mean, the
but, you know,
Stonewall or whatever is
Right.
very close to here.
So it makes complete sense that have that. So that's why pride to me makes no sense at all now because we have complete equal rights. So what's the point? What are you marching for?
And then eventually, when they were like, "We can't have police," and you're like, "This is like a giant parade. Like, we have to have some."
Well, it just
police."
became the parade for all the causes too.
Yeah.
Well, it's anything now, and it's anything and nothing, and it's just a big excuse for a party, and it's corporate. It just feels
Which
so.
that's the part of it that's like fine though. The
Is it?
excuse for a party where you're like, I don't know, if you're like 20 and live in the city and it's an excuse for this big party.
Yeah, it is, but they keep-
anything could be. Yeah, that part I get.
yeah, but then why carry all these placards about how oppressed you are? Because
Well, that's the part where it's
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what
because you're not.
I'm back out.
yeah. The oppression element is probably waning as the years go by.
But it's just not true.
Yeah.
Not in a metropolitan,
No,
I guess. Yeah.
I mean it's true in Saudi Arabia and it's true in the Middle East and all those sorts of places. But they don't fly.
The odd person,
They don't
yeah.
fly the flags over there, and where it would actually make a difference. I mean, the corporations that have the gay pride flag over here, and then they discreetly remove it when it comes to their Middle East branches.
I know.
All the time that happens.
Well, but I always think of it like, okay, so whenever you see a guy, like, you remember how, I don't know if you saw this, but there was like a guy that there was like a shooter, and his dad. You remember his dad was like a homophobe?
Yeah, it was recently in
right.
Colorado Springs.
The Colorado Springs.
Right,
So it was a
right.
shooter. I did a bad job explaining it. But his dad basically came out and he was like, no, my son's
I
not
saw
gay.
that.
People were saying, yeah, right? And I go, my point is that like, so there was this guy that was homophobic and everyone in the world's seen it.
Yeah.
If something was common, when one happened, everyone in the whole country wouldn't see it.
Right.
You go... Right? If you go, everyone thinks this, you go, well, then why anytime they find one, it is like the number one
yeah.
topic. That's obviously something that's rare.
Yeah, and exactly. It's rare to even hear, like, when you hear that out of someo's mouth, you go like, oh, crazy. Like,
I just really
didn't know those people still
mistrust this
existed.
idea of wanting to be a victim. I think it's really vulgar.
Yeah.
Like why deny all the progress that's been made and pretend you're a victim? What is the allure of it? What's the appeal of it? I don't.
Advancement in your comedy career.
Yeah, advancement.
Oh,
in your
there's that.
social status of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's quite perverse.
Acceptance.
It is perverse.
Well,
very.
why have we reached a situation where where you could garner social status out of being a victim? Why? Why is that rewarded in that
Well,
way?
I think it's like a part of culture that's always existed. And if you look back to, not in the same way, but if you look at like, okay, think about like music when it was like everyone was emo, right?
Yeah.
Like being the depressed guy would like gain social status in that community.
But that's not very long ago. That's not a big historical
No,
example.
No, but I mean,
It's
like, you can pick communities. Like, I'm sure that there was like the beatnik era, probably
Right,
being like
okay.
the depressed guy was like a badge of honor almost. So it's not the first time that like
Maybe not.
being like what you would think of as like a bad quality was a positive quality.
Well, I mean, some people have argued this about Christianity, is that Christianity promoted the idea of the triumph of the victim. You've got Christ on the cross, and the symbol of the cross is, I am the victim.
I've never heard that.
Don't tell Kanye this.
Sorry, I won't. I'm not going near Kanye, but and that this is that, and that's where. I mean, it's been proposed that that's where this woke idea comes from.
I guess you could say you're like, I'm this guy that took all this stuff.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Christ.
So
he's up there very dramatically. He's like,
Christ is trying to be a victim.
It's very dramatic. Like my friend Scott Capurro, who's a stand-up, he does this bit about Christ on the cross, forgetting his safe word, and that's why he was up there. And it's like, but there is this sort of and there is a case to this that the woke ideology could be said to have been birthed by Christianity, or the remnants of Christianity, because it does follow those ideas, even though ostensibly it's dead against it.
Allah was like, no, my son's not doing none of that shit.
Yeah. But I just find it really like self-pity is a really unattractive quality anyway.
Yeah.
And I just and when I hear people complain when they've got so much, and we're all so pampered, we're just all so pampered. Can't we just accept that we've got it pretty well?
I guess we should. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap up here. Well, you know what? We'll tell. Yeah, we're gonna get you out of here, but we'll tell you what the ones you want to talk about your book. Like,
I don't need to talk about.
Well, just maybe say the
whip it out.
Can we just say the title of it? Because you're kind of doing like a tour for it, right? It's coming out. Yeah.
It's called The New Puritans. It's sort of it's about the religion of social justice, and it's about the way in which it's captured the world. But the other thing about it is what I was trying to do in the book is sort of explain, people are really baffled by the fact that they can see that society has changed, that this ideology has gripped every major institution, even the corporate world, media, the arts, entertainment, politics, the judiciary, the army, everything, and they're confused because it describes itself as progressive, as liberal, and for social justice, against racism, and it seems to do the opposite of what it says. So really the book's trying to talk through where it's come from, how you get through sort of the linguistic minefields. How is it that an anti-racist activist ends up making society more racist and racially divided? So it's really about the cultural.
And predictions of where we wind up?
I've suggested a way out in the book,
Okay. We'll leave people to...
Yeah.
Well, I'm also interested. I tried to draw a direct comparison with what happened at Salem because I think it's kind of similar insofar as you had a community of very good, decent people in Salem. It only lasted for a year. They weren't witch hunters. That's not what they did. They just got caught in this major hysteria, and it was just these children saying they saw witches everywhere, which wouldn't have mattered if all the adults said, "No, you don't. That's not happening."
Okay.
What happened was the elites, the magistrates, the ministers, they all said, "Yes, it's true, and we're going to hang and kill the people that you and that's the similar thing that's what's happening today. If you think of all the activists online screaming about fascists being everywhere, or TERFs, or whatever word they want to use, the only reason they have any power is because the elites say, yes, okay, we're going to take that seriously and we're going to punish all these people that you want us to punish. And it's also in Salem, all of the prosecutions were secured on what they called spectral evidence, which is what we call lived experience.
Right.
So the girls didn't have any evidence; they just had their own truth, their way of knowing. So the message really, if you look at what happened in Salem and the way they got out of it, is that eventually the elite started saying, "Oh, we're not going along with what you're doing," and that is the sort.
No
of,
more
you know,
anonymous tips from 6-year-olds.
right? Exactly, and don't so when these people are screaming about TERFs and all the rest, just say you're deluded.
Sure, but
You know, just
probably
say-
the first people to stick their necks out to say we're not doing this anymore probably was not an easy position.
Well, in Salem, they got hanged, right? So
That's what I'm saying.
the people who said the girls are lying or the girls are deluded,
Oh, that sounds like some witch
they
bullshit.
died. They died.
Right, so it's,
But yeah, exactly. But what I find very interesting about Salem is the more I read
All
about
I'm
it,
hearing is hocus pocus.
most of the elites didn't really believe it. Like most of the magistrates didn't, because when the girls accused one of the rich guys, they said, that you're probably mistaken.
Oh,
So
okay.
they never. So they accused the acting head of Harvard, and the judges say, no, you're wrong.
Oh, you're wrong.
You've got
with
it
that
wrong.
one,
You've got it
yeah.
wrong.
You're right about
So-
all the other ones.
Yeah, you're right about the ones we don't care about.
sure.
Oh, fuck. All right. On that note,
Yes.
Andrew
Thank you for
Doyle,
coming
that was
on.
fun, dude. You're super funny.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
appreciate
All right. Peace.
Thank you.
Bye.